Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is January 25th, 2023. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Councilmember Cosden.
Thank you. We ask tonight that laws are rightly administered and enacted. May decisions be for the good of the people we serve. May Council always encourage due respect and virtue in life, and as we live out our daily existence in this community. May the Council execute laws and make decisions with justice and mercy, and seek to help all people live in freedom. May we always seek to preserve peace, to promote national happiness, and to continue to bring the blessings of liberty and equality for all people. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gunter.
Here.
Council members Cosden.
Here.
Cummings.
Here.
Hayden.
Here.
Long.
Here.
Shepherd.
Here.
Steinke.
Here.
Welsh.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Item 5 is changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, or do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councilmember Steinke?
I'd like to pull number 17 from the consent agenda, please.
Okay, when we get, we do have a section in our agenda where I'll be asking council to pull any items. So at that time, maybe we can pull those items now. Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call the floor to the city manager. We had
Okay.
a problem with his light.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couldn't get my
That's okay.
contraption opened. I'd like to withdraw item D2 from today's agenda, since that is an item for discussion at our winter retreat on Friday. We will then bring back this item once it incorporates feedback that we get from City Council on Friday. Thank you.
So,
Motion to adopt the agenda, withdrawing D2.
and let's be clear, item 9D2 is Resolution 32-23, which is our 2023 state legislative platform.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Your Honor, I apologize. I didn't hear the request from Mr. Steinke.
I think we're going to address that later on when we get to consent agenda, where he wishes to pull us a particular consent agenda item.
Thank you very much. Cosden.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long.
Aye.
Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
8 ayes. Motion carried.
Okay, item 7 is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from a special meeting of January 11th, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from a regular meeting of January 11th, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8 is citizens' input time. A maximum of 60 minutes is set for the input of citizens on matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name. For the record, we will be utilizing the podium to my left, which is your right, which is our new podium. And also, I just want to make sure everyone understands directly in front of me is a 3-minute time clock, so that's something that you can reference during your discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's great to see you all again. I come tonight to bring you 2 pieces of information that are community events that I hope you have an interest in and our citizens. The first one is up on your screen, so
I know we know your name, but could
Oh,
you state
know
your
my
name for the record?
Okay, Gloria Tate, President.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. So, you know my passion for insurance, and the Government Affairs Committee for the Cape Coral Chamber also has that same passion. So we are fortunate that Jeffrey Parker reached out to us, and we're going to be having a FEMA 2.0 seminar on the 31st. It is free. Our issue is because the yacht club is no longer available, we are very limited in space. We have 125 seats. So we encourage everyone to sign on at the Cape Coral Chamber to attend. There will be a question and answer session as well as information handed out. Remember, this is not FEMA for hurricane. This is FEMA for 2.0 insurance and how it affects you and for all the people that just went into flood zones because the map changed November 17th. So I hope everyone will attend. My next item is a fun thing. So we are having, it is Heart Month in February, I'm sure many of you know, and the Cape Coral Museum of History is proud to represent the heart health industry this month with partnering with Lee Health. We will have the blood mobile, we will have blood pressure screening, we're going to have all types of activities, and at the end of the night, we are going to have a speaker from Lee Health talking about the importance of a healthy heart, and we hope to work with the city and see many of our council members come and donate blood and get your blood pressure checked and figure out how to get healthier in 2023. So it's right around the corner from you, and I know you'll participate. And with that, thank you all, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Lori Lehman, and I'm, as funny as it sounds, I brought a visual aid. I walk with my dog at night on 38th Terrace with this light. You can't miss this. And I have almost been hit repeatedly because that's a 30-mile-an-hour zone, that street, and nobody pays attention to it, not even the school buses during the day. They fly down it at 50 miles an hour. They run across the grass between the sidewalk and the street. And something needs to be done with this. There's a speed limit sign at the beginning of it on Aqualinda, and there's one also on Oasis. That is, other than Beach, that's the only street that goes from Oasis to Aqualinda. Well, something needs to be done about this street, whether it's speed bumps or make it a one-way or do something. But those of us that live there, it's not safe for us to walk, even in broad daylight, let alone at night. And I'd like to know what can be done about this. I mean, I've talked to quite a few of the people that live on the street, and if I have to, I'll do a petition on it so y'all can see at the next meeting that, hey, all of us that live there are very serious about this. We don't want to have to worry. And there are kids that from the charter school that ride their bikes down this way, down the sidewalk, and they've almost been hit. Something needs to be done. We need some help over there. Thank you.
Thank you. And could you repeat the street name again, please?
Southwest 38th Terrace.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Chevalier, and I live in the village of Entrada. And I think, as most of you probably know, we have a traffic issue at the Entrada entrance on Del Prado. It was caused by the intersection traffic pattern change at D. Navarra. I have submitted an email comment to the City Council website, and I understand I don't have an option to speak unless you allow me to, since I already submitted the...
No, you can still speak during this 3-minute
Okay.
time.
Okay. So I've been reading our web page, and there's over 700 people in our community, and I went through it all, and I got a summary of some of the residents' issues, which I'd like to read to you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. These are just random, pretty much a summary of what everybody is seeing and complaining about. Okay, the first one is, we watched a car do a U-turn next to a stopped school bus this morning while kids were loading. It's a recipe for disaster. Second one, 7:10 a.m. We reached the Entrada driveway on Del Prado, the U-turn traffic heading south that blocked the entire turning lane from the east. Worse than that, though, it was impossible to see around them to determine if oncoming Del Prado traffic was coming. It was take your chance and enter the westbound traffic lane without being hit by a fast-moving, unseen vehicle. We had the same problem on our way here this afternoon, trying to make a left turn to go down Del Prado south. Your next comment, and I only have 2 more of these. Another person wrote, yesterday I witnessed a semi-truck and a 40-foot trailer making a U-turn at our entrance, blocking both lanes of traffic while maneuvering. Accident waiting to happen. And the last one, I couldn't see over the long U-Haul, the long U-turn lane with buses, school buses, and I drive a big SUV. I was shaking and on the verge of tears with my 5-year-old in the car. So that's pretty much the whole flavor of the last week or so since that traffic change was implemented. Then within the community, there was also a lot of resolutions and suggestions to correct the problem, and I picked out about 5 that seemed to be reasonable, and I'll read those to you. The first one was reduce the speed limit. Currently, the speed limit on Del Prado is 50 miles an hour, and most people go 60. So it's a drag strip through there usually. So when you're trying to jump out there, make a left turn, you've got people coming this way, going 50 to 60. My time is up.
Thank you, and
Okay.
we got your e-comment as well.
Okay, you got all that. Can I finish?
No, ma'am, your time is up.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Betty.
Sure.
She has a petition.
Sure, and she could pick up where you left off if you like.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Betty Henderson. I have emailed Ms. Cosden as well with the petition, and I believe you all got copies of the petition. We have 242 signatures. And what Marianne said is pretty much sums everything up. Since the pattern of traffic has changed at De Navarra, where they're making everybody come down and make a U-turn at Entrada. We have U-turns, we have people turning right, we have people turning left, we have Bella Vita coming out, turning left, turning right. And then we have 2 bus stops, one on our side and one on the Bella Vita side. And those bus stops are for high school, middle, and elementary. So you can imagine at certain times during the day what that traffic looks like. And then you add to that the high schoolers that are coming out on De Navarra from Island Coast, and they can only go right, and then they come and make a U-turn, and they pay no attention to school buses that are stopped or anything else. So they're just running into the traffic. We had another car the other day that turned right, heading towards 41, had to jam on their brakes, flipped around and ended up in the median facing south. So, or east, I guess. Anyway, the problem is going to become a major accident. And my question to you is, the reason this was done at De Navarra was because there was a 6-car pileup as well as many other accidents. And the only thing that's been done here is they moved the problem from De Navarra to our intersection with adding the school buses and the U-turns. It's a recipe for disaster. We're going to end up with a major accident there. Nobody wants to see this. And we really, the response from Ms. Cosden was that it's going to take perhaps a year. It can't take a year. In a year's time, I don't know how many accidents we're going to have. It's been a week, and we almost had 3 that people have been reporting. So I don't know what else to say. I guess my question to you is, when is this going to get fixed? And it can get fixed quickly because it got fixed quickly before. And if we have gone to the media, and we've asked the media to address this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Jill Hyatt, and I belong to the Lake Kennedy Senior Acting Group. And I'm here with a frustration, I guess. We're trying to figure out, we have a show that we've been practicing for and rehearsing for, and we normally rehearse in the Lake Kennedy Center, and clearly that's been taken over by FEMA, and we can't get in there. And we understand that. So we've been rehearsing actually in my backyard. But we have a show, and we're supposed to be selling tickets, and we're supposed to be rehearsing on the stage. And we can't get an answer to when FEMA will vacate the premises. I have talked to Lake Kennedy staff, and they said, talk to FEMA. I've called FEMA, and they said, go to the FEMA Lake Kennedy Center and ask to speak to the manager on site. I went there, and he was very accommodating. He says, I have no clue. I answered to the Lee County coordinator for the Disaster Recovery Center. So I called Lee County. They don't even know what I'm talking about. So it's a typical nobody knows anything, but when they're told to leave by whoever, then that's when they'll leave. So I wonder if there's anything the council can do to help me find out if we should cancel or, I mean, we've been selling tickets and, you know, we need to know. Can we get in there? Can we get in there before before our show starts? When can we get in there? When can we rehearse? When are they leaving? And I asked the manager on site, is there a way to downsize? Because they've taken over practically the whole center. I said, now that things are slowing down, can you have just a couple tables in all the ante rooms and see the different folks there and vacate the main ballroom? And he didn't have an answer for that either. He didn't know. That's beyond his pay grade. So that's my frustration. I hope there's something the city council can do to get an answer for us. Thank you.
Your show date is when?
Pardon?
When is your show?
Well, the show date is supposed to be March 24th. But, normally you sell tickets in advance of that. We need 4 weeks for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Christian Widdish. I come here tonight to represent Norfolk Myers High School student government. On April 1st, 2023, the Norfolk Myers High School student government will be hosting an autism walk on our Moody Field from 9:30 a.m. when gates open to the public for free until 11. On behalf of student government, I'd like to invite all members of the city council to come, and if they do so choose, we would like to reserve a spot for you to speak on your support of special populations in our city, as well as to just get the word out there that our city is one of inclusion and awareness, one of equality and equity for all peoples. And I believe that if the city council does choose to either collectively or individually, council members or even Mayor Gunter, you decide to attend, it would show not only good on your part for your care of your constituents, but it would also show that community involvement is what promotes inclusion at heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Ron Austin. I live in Cape Harbor. I'd like to address the issues of the Chiquita Lock with reference to the currents and waterways that are impacted by the gates that are not operable at the lock at this time. Before the hurricane struck, we had a meeting with the city engineers and the city with Mike Ilchism, reference putting up some more safety devices, bumpers, fenders, etc., at the lock. This hurricane struck and nothing has been done. Since then, with the gates open, we've been asked to enter at our own risk with our boats. The current that goes through the lock at this time is almost impossible to control your boats going through it. However, there is times during the day that we have slack time. The city at one time posted slack times on their website showing boaters when they could go into the lock and leave the lock where the water wasn't flowing as dramatically as it is right now. That website or that information has been taken off of the city website. And we've been asked to look at both Iona and the Cape Coral Bridge for the current tidal conditions, which doesn't reflect exactly what's going on at the lock. The second part is that a lot of boats are having trouble with the concrete abutments that are still exposed at the lock. And we've requested on one occasion or two to have some fenders put up, or bumpers put up, or some rubber put up that would protect the boats, so that if they do impact the lock wall or impact the lock, they'd be able to at least bump off of them without damaging the watercraft. We understand that it's going to be a while before we can actually fix this situation, however it's fixed. But in the meantime, we were hoping that, we've been requesting that the city come in and do some things for it. The other problem that we have is that when you enter the lock from east or west, you can't tell if there's another boat coming in. And we've talked about having someone there to at least let people know that there's a boat coming into the lock. You can't tell when you're when you're coming off the home side or the non-Calusi side if there's a boat coming in from the river. So it would be beneficial to the city if we could get some controls on that. The last thing we'd like to do is have the cameras moved. Right now, they don't show the flow of current in the canal that's covering the doors where the doors are open. So if they move the cameras so we could see the current, you'd be able to look at them on your phone or your website and be able to tell when the slack tide is occurring so you could bring your boats through it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input? Please come forward. Seeing none, citizens' input is now closed, and I will open up for council discussion on citizens' input. I just have a few things. As far as D. Navarra and Del Prado Boulevard, as we all know, that's been a topic of discussion the last few weeks. Maybe two things, Mr. City Manager. Maybe we can get our Public Works Director up just to give us an update on that, where we are. And I know there's a period of time that we are assessing the changes that we made out there, so maybe he can discuss that a little bit. And then maybe any additional traffic enforcement that the police department may or may not be doing.
So here's where we are. I think I can handle the response that you're looking for, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So as you know, we've implemented the traffic control measures at the intersection of D. Navarra and Del Prado. And yes, that has caused traffic to utilize the entrance at Entrada and Belvita. However, if that continues to be a problem, we could also install the exact same traffic control measures at that intersection to control through traffic through the intersection as well. Our public works staff informed me that they are in contact with the school district about the possibility of moving those school bus stops away from the actual intersection itself. That's where the bus actually stops and blocks the intersection. So we've been in contact with them. We've also had a police presence out there now for several days, and we'll continue to monitor the situation over the next, at least next week or 2 weeks, to ensure that people are getting adjusted to the new traffic conditions. Anytime you make a change, there's always a period of time that you've got to give drivers an opportunity to acclimate. They will acclimate over time. And so whatever issues that we're having with now, I'm not downplaying them, but are likely to be resolved in the very near future as driver habits adjust or as we adjust to the driver habits. Does that answer your question, Mr. Mayor? Or are you looking for something more specific?
No, that's good there. Maybe hear from our police chief, and he could elaborate if there's any additional either enforcement in that particular area as a result of the changing in traffic patterns.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Anthony Sizemore, Police Chief. Yes, just to reiterate what the city manager said, we do have a 2-week traffic detail to augment our already present traffic units and patrol units, but we specifically put people out there for this 2-week trial in addition to our speed trailers to measure the traffic, measure the speed, the volume, and aggressively enforce any violations that occur in that stretch of roadway. There's 2 officers dedicated to it, peak morning times, peak afternoon drive times, and the anecdotal evidence that I've gotten so far, it started yesterday morning at 0600, and through today, there's already been a shift, as the city manager alluded, to driver behavior, recognizing that there's a change, It's a big change when you have a large amount of traffic, which there's no dispute that there's a large amount of traffic on that roadway, that is all of a sudden pooling and doing U-turns, controlled U-turns, in an area where they were not doing so in the past. And the Public Works Director has been working with the school district to move those school bus stops, which I don't think is a bad idea, to do that just in general, to get them off of the roadway. And we should see this trend continue. If it does not, then we will adjust our tact. But we are in a situation where this has been discussed ad nauseum, and we did that in this room a couple of weeks ago, where this traffic light or this traffic signal should have been installed a long time ago. It is not. And we are all, myself and everyone here on the dais, and staff included, are picking up that fumble and trying to fix it. We will do our best with presence and enforcement, but we're going to need everybody working together, from the residents, the motoring public, staff, Public Works, school district, and police, for a true community effort to get this resolved in the short term, because what we're doing now is a resolution for the short term. It's not a fix. It's a Band-Aid, and we will adjust, and then when we get that traffic signal that's desperately needed, we should see some permanent relief.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the update. The other thing, I think the one citizen had mentioned reference to the show at Lake Kennedy, and I'm sure you're aware that, FEMA will have a priority at that location first before any other function. But I do not know the game plan or the time frame, how long they're going to be there. Maybe Mr. City Manager may be able to elaborate on that. I don't know if we'll have that decision you're looking for in the next 30 days. But as I'm sure you're well aware, the FEMA presence there will definitely have a priority. Mr. City Manager.
So, Mr. Mayor, I do not have a definitive date on when FEMA intends on discontinuing their operations there at Lake Kennedy. However, given the amount of damage that our city sustained during Hurricane Ian and the magnitude of people and businesses that need assistance, I would highly recommend that the folks look at an alternative venue for their performance. Perhaps they can work something out with the Cultural Theater right down the road at Cultural Park to host their performance. But at the moment, the FEMA Disaster Recovery Center is a priority for the community, and I really don't see their efforts winding up certainly before April 1st.
Thank you. And lastly, I know that one resident had a concern with Southwest 38th Terrace. I believe that is Councilmember Shepherd's district. So I see his light on, so I'm sure he'll have a comment. But I would recommend reaching out to him directly to try to find some alternatives or a resolution, if there is any, for your particular issue. With that being said, Councilmember Cosden.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Christian for coming to speak tonight, and I wanted to ask if you could send details about the autism walk to all of us. I will be there. Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, I just want the resident to know on Southwest 38th Terrace that I've received many other phone calls from other areas in our community where people have noticed that drivers are being more aggressive, a lot more drivers. Our city's growing, and I'm going to be talking as well with the city manager and our chief, along with our other council members, on seeing if we have enough traffic officers and if we need to add more. Because I just want you to know, you're not the only one. We've all noticed it, as well as council, that.
Ma'am, there's no open discussion. Please, this is a time for the council members to discuss.
I just want you to know that what you brought up is very important, and we all noticed it in other areas in the city as well. And we're going to work diligently on finding out what needs to be done and talking to the right people. The city manager and the chief will have meetings with them and find out what needs to be done to correct the problem. So we're on it. So thank you.
And again, please reach out to Councilmember Shepherd. Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, the youth council, as I'll tell you, here in a few minutes had to move their spring gala from that site to Fort Freedom, so that could be an option for you. FEMA does take priority now because there are still a lot of residents that are seeking answers to the damage that they suffered. Mr. City Manager, is there a way to get slack times reposted on the website to at least provide that information to
Yes,
voters?
yes, council member, I wasn't aware of that. I'll look into that immediately and get, that seems to be an easy fix.
Yeah, I don't know if changing the camera, the direction of the cameras is as easy as a fix, but could that be looked into as
We
well?
will look into that as well. The one issue about posting someone there for traffic control purposes, that is not something that I will recommend nor support for various reasons. Ultimately, the operator of the boat is responsible for the safe operation of their
And
their
based on that comment, it sounds like the bumpers
So-
or those, or the rubber strips or whatever, might make a difference with that
Yes,
kind of?
so actually, ironically enough, Mr. Ilches in Public Works several weeks ago now indicated to me that he was moving forward in that direction.
Okay.
So I know that's something that is on his list, and I'm sure the appropriate measures are being procured.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cummings.
To Jill, with your theater, your show, if the other theaters don't work, do you think, Rob, that Lake Kennedy could use half of it for their play? Do you think there would be a problem with that if another theater does not work for them?
I don't know, council member. We will certainly ask FEMA, but I would imagine FEMA would be uncomfortable having all of their records and so forth readily accessible and not under their control or properly safeguard. So I think what we really do need to do is let's just focus on FEMA remaining there and finding an alternate venue for the performance to take. I think that's going to be the most opportune solution to this issue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I just wanted to know if we have a name and a contact number, if we have any potential solutions to connect a potential solution to the Lake Kennedy situation. Do we have?
When you say contact, like, do we have a contact at FEMA?
Yes, for our citizen that brought the issue, if there are potential solutions out there, who do we contact and how? Can we get a name and a number for contact?
At a staff level? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, if all of us have, I have connections, and so if we were to talk to somebody and say, hey, would you be able to house this event, who do we call and what number do we call?
So I imagine the question, hang on, Chief, is being asked of the representative of the group that
Correct.
came and spoke. So we need to get her contact information.
Yep.
Is she still here?
Yes. Yep. Maybe you can email all of City Council, give them your contact information. Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking for.
And then if any solutions are possibly available, we may be able to reach back out to you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 9, which is business. 9A is consent agenda. I will now open up the consent agenda for council to pull any items. My understanding, Councilmember Steinke, you want to pull item 17, correct?
Yes, please.
All right. Any other items the council would like to pull? If not, do I have a motion to approve the remaining 16 items on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the 16.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Item 17 is the waiver of conflict of interest for law firm of Henderson, Franklin, Starnes, and Holt. I will turn this over to Councilmember Steinke since he pulled the item.
Thank you. My concern in the rationale all makes sense, although I don't see where, while it's stated in the communication that they would not represent either party in the event of a legal action post their work with that third party, I don't see anything in writing that says that they won't. The waiver is in writing and is, a document signed by all parties, but I don't see where the commitment to not represent either party is something that's been codified in a document.
Okay, Madam City Attorney, would you like to elaborate on that?
No, but if it's something that we would want to add into it, if it's not in there now, we could always do that, and that would be made a part of the approval, if you choose to approve it, but you have no obligation to approve it.
And I guess the alternative to that as well is we could ask for a continuance until our next meeting, if council collectively has that same desire as Councilmember Steinke had mentioned. So I think that's another option as well.
Certainly, if I'm the only one that has a concern about it, I can always vote no and be 1 out of 8 that is concerned. I just think that if we give them the waiver, we're doing that in writing. And if they are committing to not represent either party in the event of a future action, then that should be in writing too.
Okay, so let me just chime in for a minute, because I have the waiver of conflict of interest here with the form, and it does say the waiver does not extend to any dispute or litigation with regard to the representation that may arise between the city and Cape Coral Dumas Storage LLC or its affiliates. And in the event of litigation arising out of this representation, the firm agrees that it will not represent either party therein. Again, you're not obligated to waive any conflict.
Councilmember Long.
Yeah, just to elaborate, it does say that in the letter, but I think the concern was that the signature block only requires a signature from the city of Cape Coral, rather than a counter-executed block, basically doubling down on the obligation of the language that's in the letter stating the same. And so,
Thank you.
For clarification purposes, I think I wouldn't have an issue at least delaying this until we can get some clarification on that point. But I would leave it to the rest of council to collectively make that decision.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of agree. We want to make sure that it's crystal clear of what our intentions are. And if that means that we just have to wait 1 more week, especially if we don't have a signature line, as you had mentioned, for the firm, because we all know that if we're entering into an agreement, we want to make sure that both parties not only understand clearly what the intent of the agreement is, but it's also to make sure that all parties sign that particular agreement. Therefore, in the future, if there was an issue, at least we have a document that we could provide that signature of acknowledgement is on the document. So I would agree just to continue this particular item. We do have a regular council meeting next week, so it's not like we have to wait 2 weeks. So it would only be a 1-week delay, just to make sure it's clarified and in our best interest moving forward. So that's where my vote will be.
We would have no problem if council desired to continue it, and we could place it on the agenda then if that's your pleasure.
Okay. All right. With that being said, I don't see any other discussion. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to continue till next week?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 9B, appointments to boards and committees. Tonight, under B1, we have the Waterway Advisory Board. We have 6 vacancies, and I will turn the floor over to Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Your Honor. We have 6 vacancies to fill for Waterway Advisory Board. 4 are for regular members and 2 are for alternate members. There are 10 applications received. Many of the applicants are here in the audience today, if council would like to interview them at the podium.
Yeah, I think maybe 1 minute, does that sound, we'll give any applicant that's present 1 minute opportunity to introduce themselves and make any comments that he or she feels necessary. Also, I'm thinking after that is completed, that we vote on the 4 positions first. And then after that vote, we vote for the alternates. As long as, the rest of council agrees, maybe move forward in that fashion. Okay. All right, Madam City Clerk.
Your Honor, would you like me to call them by district or by alphabetical order?
Well, how about alphabetical order, and if you have that in front of you?
I do.
And maybe just mention in your bringing them up exactly what district they're in.
Certainly. All right, so the first applicant would be Ronald Austin, District 2, and Mr. Austin is seeking reappointment.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Ron Austin. I live in Cape Harbor. I've been an active member in the yacht clubs of Cape Coral for the last 10 years. I've worked on a number of different water issues with our community. I was one of the original founders or starters of the Waterways Advisory Board with John Cariosha when it was first brought up a number of years ago. I've spent a great deal of time watching our waters, watching what's going on with the Calusa Waterway, the Franklin Locks, the lake. I've sent numerous items of interest to our board and to the city council, and I've been an active member of a lot of different associations relating to this issue, the water and the waterways of Cape Coral, including our, and most importantly, our canal system. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, Gray Bullen, District 2.
Hi, thank you for reviewing my application. I appreciate it. My name is Gray Bolin, current resident of Cape Coral for almost 6 years. Married to my wife, Janice Bolin, for 30 years, having 4 grown children. Have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Math. Currently a technology sales manager, a global account manager with Lumen Technology with over 9 years experience. I live on the Cape Canal in District 2 with access to the Gulf via the spreader canals. As an avid boater and fisherman, I have a vested interest in the waterway systems within Cape Coral. As a concerned resident, becoming a committee member of the Waterway Advisory Committee, I feel I can contribute to the concerns of the community regarding water quality, safety, ordinance, and recreation activities. A little bit of experience in the community. Prior to moving to Cape Coral, I lived in Northern Virginia for 17 years. During my time in Virginia, I became involved in the community as executive director.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Joseph Cruz, District 1, seeking reappointment.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joseph Cruz. I'm currently on the Water Board Advisory, been there for 2 years. I'm a resident of Cape Coral, behind the 4 Mile Cove Preserve. I'm also an active member of the Lee County Parks and Recs, overseeing the restoration of 4 Mile Cove. And I would appreciate the opportunity to continue on the board. I think we've done great advances and made some real progress, and there's a lot more work to be done. And if you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you.
Thomas Dawson, District 2.
Good evening. Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to give you at least 1 minute to talk. My name is Tom Dawson. I'm a resident here since 2017. I'm a retired 10-year member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, where I taught boating education and served on the Coast Guard's training teams up on Lake Michigan. I've been teaching safe boating here in Cape Coral since 2018 at the United States Power Squadron, the Cape Coral Sail and Power Squadron, or America's Boating Club, Cape Coral. We can't decide on our name at the moment. It's kind of crazy. I've been attending the meetings for the Cape Coral Waterway Advisory Board now for at least 2 years, and I see a lot of people interested in what they think they know, but unfortunately what I think the board is lacking is some background and knowledge in terms of what boating safety, the laws, the regulations, et cetera, are. And I think I could provide that to the board. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Lee Fowinkle. Mr. Fowinkle indicated that he had jury duty today and wasn't sure if he would make it to our appointment time, but he was very interested in serving.
Thank you.
Lane Jones, District 1.
Hello, City Council, Mayor. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Lane Jones. I live in Southeast Cape off the Rubicon Canal. We have a canal property, and our family owns a boat. And I've enjoyed the waters in this area. I also happen to work for the U.S. Geological Survey. Until very recently, I retired in July of 2022. I was a contracting officer at that point. You understand the U.S. Geological Survey does not have any agency as far as enforcement on any of our waterways. They do sampling and they study and they report. So I bought them things like boats and toilet paper. But I need to put that out there because I was a federal employee. But having said that, I'm familiar with working with all branches of government, federal, state, local. I've done grants and I know science to a certain extent, and I'd like to think I could bring something to this from that perspective. And thank you again for hearing us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mile Lombardo, District 7.
Good afternoon. My name is Malay Lombardo. I'm a real estate broker here in Cape Coral. I service mostly Cape Coral. Bill, you and I have met before. My husband is a contractor of 17 plus years. I've been serving here as a real estate agent for 10 plus years. I come from a place of contribution. I live here. My kids are being raised here. We love the waterways. We boat very heavily. And I'm passionate about, the personal enjoyment here, not only because I sell this area, but also because I've been obsessed with policy and laws since my background is very intense with law. I actually went through my first year of law school. So I feel that I'm a suited candidate for this position. I feel that I would serve with honor and commitment to bring my contribution to my community. After Ian, I feel that it's my duty to come forth and just put in my contribution.
Thank you. Any questions? Could you repeat your last name again?
Lombardo.
Any questions?
What was the district?
District 7?
7.
Yep. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Michael Magruder, District 2, seeking reappointment.
What was that individual's name?
Michael Magruder.
Okay.
He must have come across a schedule conflict. Sorry about that. Jason Pym, District 1, seeking reappointment.
Hello all, my name is Jason Pym. I grew up here in Cape Coral in the southeast. Sailing, boating, fishing is a huge part of my life. My wife and I have 2 daughters here, trying to give them the same opportunities and experiences and preserve the natural resources for their future. I am a past Commodore of CMCS Sailing Club. I'm still on the board of that club, and I've been a very active volunteer with Calusa Waterkeeper, Future Forestry. I worked very hard with staff and a number of concerned citizens to improve the City of Cape Coral's fertilizer ordinance, and worked very hard on the preservation of 4 Mile Cove. I've been on the Waterway Advisory Board for 2 years now, and I appreciate that opportunity. We have unique challenges in Cape Coral, and I think we all know that Hurricane Ian set back both boating safety and water quality issues, and I'd like to continue our efforts on that board. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and the final applicant is Kelly Severns from District 2. Kelly is out of town this evening and had sent an email to council with her specific qualifications and is very eager to serve on the board.
Okay, so it seems like that is all of the applicants. So what I'll do first off is open the floor for any discussion. If we do not have any discussion, then I will ask the city clerk by the order of our roll call tonight to give each one of us to give 4 names for the 4 permanent positions. And then after that, we will go back and give 2 names for the alternate positions. So any discussion first? Go ahead.
I do have a question for Ron. Where's Ron at? Yes. Did you say you were one of the first to help get this going?
That's correct.
And if you don't mind me asking, how long has the Water Advisory Board been, well, let's say this, the date it was founded?
It was 4 years ago, I believe.
Oh, 4 years ago?
Well, no, we're in our second, so it's our third year of, did we start, was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago. We've had 2 full years. We've had 2 full years of water board.
Okay, so you've been on it 2 full years?
Yes, I have.
And you've been helping it to move forward and with a lot of your research and?
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you, that was my question. Thanks.
Madam City Clerk?
I just wanted to add that the Waterway Advisory Board was established by ordinance on December 7th of 2020. And the first members started, their appointment initially was January 20th, 2021.
And also, I just wanted to remind council, I believe that all of our boards now, if I'm not mistaken, we have a term limits of 2, is that correct? Or can you explain that a little bit? I know this is probably the first time this particular board comes up for reappointment, but could you clarify that for us?
So my understanding of Ordinance 5521 was to establish term limits, but any appointments made prior to it being passed in July of 21 are not in the consideration.
Right.
It's for appointments that July date
future.
forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarity. Councilmember Steinke.
Yes, I missed Kelly Severn's district.
District 2.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please go down the roll list, and we'll give you 4 names for the permanent positions.
Costin?
Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Jones.
Okay. So that was Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Jones.
Correct.
Cummings? So that was Dawson, Austin, Jones, and Bullen. Gunter?
Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Lombardo.
Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Lombardo. Hayden?
Cruz, Pym, Austin, Severance.
Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Severance. Long?
Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Lombardo.
Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Lombardo.
Yes, ma'am.
Shepherd?
Cruz, Lombardo, Austin, Dawson.
Cruz, Lombardo, Austin, and Dawson. Steinke?
Austin, Pym, Lombardo, and Bullen.
Austin, Pym, Lombardo, and Bullen. Welsh?
Cruz, Pym, Austin, Lombardo.
Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Lombardo. Okay, just one moment while I tally those. All right, so that is Austin with 8, Bullen with 2, Cruz with 6, Dawson with 2, Jones with 2, Lombardo with 5, Pym with 6, and Severns with 1.
Okay, so it looks like the top 4 is Ron Austin, Joseph Cruz got 6, Jason Pym got 6, and Miss Lombardo got 5. So that would be the top 4. Is that correct, Madam City Clerk?
Yes.
All right, so do we have a motion to reflect that accordingly?
Motion to approve Cruz, Pym, Austin, and Lombardo as the main members.
Second that.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll. Do you want to
Was that a second from
Yeah.
Councilmember Costin?
second from Councilmember Cummings, I believe?
Cummings, excuse me. Okay. All right. Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, I guess we'll go down the list again, Madam City Clerk, and we will, council will give you 2 names for the alternate positions.
Costin?
Severns and Jones.
Cummings?
Hold on. I'm so sorry, give me 1 second. Dawson and Severns.
Dawson and Severns. Gunter?
Dawson and Jones.
Dawson and Jones. Hayden?
Severns and Jones.
Severns and Jones. Long?
Severn and Jones.
Shepherd?
Dawson and Jones.
Dawson and Jones. Steinke?
Dawson and Jones.
Jones. Welsh?
Severns and Dawson.
All right, just one moment. So we have 5 for Dawson, 6 for Jones, and 5 for Severns.
So we have 6 for Jones, is that what I heard? And 5 for Dawson, and 5 for
Severns.
Severs. All right, I guess to start with, why don't we have a motion for Jones?
I'll motion for Jones to fill the first alternate.
And then we'll go back and do another vote. Do we want to do it, everybody on the opportunity to vote for, or do we want to restrict it to either Dawson or Severns?
Since those 2 got, with the top vote getters, or the only other vote getters, that we restrict it to those 2.
Okay.
I'd second the initial motion.
I was going to ask if we can hear them speak one more time for 1 minute.
With those 2 individuals, I'm okay with
You okay?
1 minute speak, but I'll open it up to the floor, to the council. Do we just want to continue voting? Councilmember Shepherd?
I don't have a problem with a minute.
Give them another 1 minute opportunity, or for us to keep voting?
I think we should just keep voting.
I'd say we just keep voting.
Councilmember Long? Keep voting. Okay.
Severns
All right,
isn't here.
that looks like that's the majority. So we have a motion and a second for Jones for an alternate position, I believe. Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, so we need to go down the list again, and our two candidates for the alternate position is Dawson and Severns.
Cosden?
Severance?
Cummings?
Dawson.
Gunter?
Dawson?
Hayden?
Severance.
Long?
Severance.
Shepherd?
Dawson.
Steinke?
Dawson.
Welsh?
See, it's always good to be last sometimes. Dawson.
Dawson. So that's 5 for Dawson and 3 for Severns.
Okay, do we have a
Motion
motion?
to approve Dawson for the next alternate position.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you, and I wanted to thank, I believe it was Councilmember Cosden. Are you the one that asked for the attendance records? I thought that was an excellent idea. Madam City Clerk, maybe in the future, that's something that we could incorporate, or at least provide that documentation to council. For me, personally, that was helpful, just to see the attendance of the people that are seeking reappointment. So I thought that was a great idea.
May I ask, Mayor, so some of the boards are many years old, going back to, memberships are back to 2000. We found that with one of them. And I wonder, is there a time frame back that you'd like us to go?
Well, maybe that particular individuals, if they're seeking for a reappointment, maybe just that term that they were serving on the original term. So we could see their attendance records.
Okay.
As we all know, we just had an issue with another individual. So if a person is coming up for reappointment, I think that's great information for us to have, their attendance records, to see how he or she is committed to that particular appointment.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 9C is unfinished business, follow-up items for City Council. Do not have anything listed. Does council have any follow-up items? Seeing none, we'll move on to 9D, new business. D1 is our Youth Council quarterly report, and I will turn it over to our council liaison, Councilmember Hayden.
We have several members of our youth council here today that are going to give you a report on some upcoming events that they have planned, some upcoming projects that they've been working hard on, and probably something very special that you're going to see in a moment is a very compelling video. I think we're showing that, right? A very compelling video about things that have happened in their lives after the hurricane and how they've connected that to what they're trying to do for their community. And this particular video project was submitted to the Florida League of Cities in their latest community competition, a competition that this group was actually one of the state champions of earlier last year. So I will now turn it over to our chair of the Youth Council, and you can begin your report.
Thank you, Councilmember Hayden. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council members, for this opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Allison Bernal, and I serve as chair of the Cape Coral Youth Council, and I'm here joined by my fellow council members, and I'll give them the opportunity to introduce themselves to you.
I'm Vice Chair Little from Oasis High School.
I'm Renee Bella from Cape Coral High School.
And I'm Olivia Revelo, and I'm from Norfolk Myers High School.
And basically, we're just here today to give you a summary of some of the things that we've been working on recently. So we'll begin. So we actually had the opportunity to bring on a new member, and we welcomed member Feichthaler onto our council very recently, and we're super excited to have him with us. So.
We have our Spring Gala coming up on Saturday, March 11th. We were fighting between Lake Kennedy Center and the Palmetto Pine Country Club, but both of the locations are now unavailable to us, so we're moving it to the Four Freedoms Park Center. And we decided that Two Meatballs in the Kitchen is going to be catering our event. And our theme centers around the colors of royal colors in general, like gold, ruby red, and navy blue.
So another project that we're currently working on is called the Love Locks project. The specific location has been chosen for Cultural Park, and on the map you can see the little yellow area. That's where construction's gonna start. We're still trying to gather some scrap metal, but we have created a donation link on GoFundMe that for any that are interested in supporting us. The link is right there.
So the seniors, every year we kind of break off into different groups, even though we as a council function together as a whole. But we do like a junior project and a senior project, and the senior project is to partner with the Art Center. And so we are working on coordinating with them to do some form of collaboration and, you know, support our community in some way to connect with the youth of our community with the Art Center. So yes.
Well, just like the senior project, each year our juniors come and create a project, and this year we are creating the Kindness Rock Garden. We actually finally decided on the location of this rock garden, and it will be in Lake Saratoga Park, which is down Santa Barbara. And so I actually went with our park supervisor, Mr. Munez, and we actually picked the exact spot in Lake Saratoga Park where the garden will be. And now we are in the process of actually creating the garden. We were trying to do two options of bordering, curbing or pavers, and now Mr. Munez actually went to different curbing companies and got quotes, and they decided that we cannot do curbing as a border for a heart-shaped garden, which is our main idea for this project. So we are back to doing pavers. Pavers have different types, different colors. There's so many different things that you can do with pavers, so we will be making our project and garden out of that. The city, as the Parks Department of our city, has actually offered to make the layout and install the garden, so we are really fortunate for that, and we are so excited to actually get this project underway.
So this is exactly what Hayden was just talking about with our FLC video competition. Now I'll pull up the video after getting done with this slide. So we were recommended to join this competition as we participated in it last year and we won. So the theme this year was how our youth councils made a positive impact on our city government and its residents. And we were affected by Hurricane Ian. We were actually going to brainstorm during the meetings, but we didn't get to because of how the hurricane messed us up. We had member Bella, who worked on the storyboard and technical aspects, and Ozinski, who worked on the summary and the questions. So if I can just pull up the video.
Most of all, I remembered the winds. Even hiding in a room that was closed off with no windows, I could hear the harsh pounding of gusts of wind against the glass. After the storm, community members were left with no power, cell, internet, or water. Once the sun went down, communities were enveloped in darkness, and it was easy to feel isolated and alone. Walking down the street, it wasn't even a street. It was mounds of sand that had been plowed back by emergency vehicles.
Plans were canceled because of the hurricane. Fortunately enough, we were actually able to go to one of the events that we planned to go to, and this was our city special populations Halloween party.
We also recently did a workshop at our city chambers, inviting all students from different schools to attend our meetings and give input on the city. We work directly alongside our city's leaders and will continue to grow with the development of our city and participate wherever we can. Our goal is to get more of the youth in Cape Coral involved in government and implement change, and to create a strategic plan for the future of our youth council.
Young residents of Cape Coral can participate in youth council happenings by attending meetings physically or virtually, or by looking at any of our various social media outlets.
my family used candles to light our way in the night. Like the candle, shining light in the darkness, our hope and sense of community allowed us to band together in times of great need. It was an experience unlike any other, and I will never forget the devastation that I witnessed that day.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you.
As it was mentioned in the video, we actually have been helping our community as we do as the Youth Council. And on October 28th, Vice Chair Little and myself, Bella Negron, and Member Reamer actually attended our Special Populations Halloween party. We had fun dancing. We served them food. It was just such a great time. And on December 3rd, Chair Bernal, members Bella Ozinski, and Member Chetta attended the Holiday Festival of Lights. As you know, Cape Coral Parkway and the City Commerce actually make this event, and we were able to go in front of the tree and make a speech. So we were really glad we could go that day.
So currently we're working on a SWOT analysis and strategic plan. The SWOT analysis, as you might know, is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we're doing this so we can become an either stronger as a council. And then our next meeting is at City Council Chambers here on February 10th at 3 p.m. and we hope to see you there.
So that is all that we have prepared for you. We're so grateful and blessed to have this opportunity to speak with you because it just, shows how we as students can have a voice and interact with you. And I'm just so grateful. I know we all are. But we're hoping to bring back another championship at FLC. So thank you, Member Bella, for creating that video. But thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Hayden?
Yeah, I think, will you remind everyone how they can get tickets to the gala?
So the Spring Gala, we have links online. We are also sending out emails. I know we have already sent out an email, I believe, but all information can be on our Instagram and online. Our Twitter, Facebook, all of our social medias. Yes, but all of that is online.
So I know the city manager is really good at reminding staff that this is an important event for them to attend, so I know he'll do that again. As they work on the strategic plan, there is no other youth council in the state that has currently developed a strategic plan that can be used as a roadmap for future youth councils and for the directions that they want to set through their eyes for the city. And I think it will be something that will also serve as a model for other youth councils as they move forward. So thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
As always, you guys are great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate all your hard work and dedication, not only this quarter, but throughout the year, so thank you. And I did get your email, and I am planning on attending your spring gala. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 9.2 was Resolution 3223, and we withdrew that particular resolution when we were adopting our agenda, so we will move on to item E, personnel actions. We do not have any listed. Petitions to council, we do not have any petitions listed, so we'll move on to item 9G, follow-up items for city management. G1 is Hurricane Ian recovery update, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll get right to it with Terry Schweitzer coming up to the podium to give you an update on where we are with debris removal operations, and that's basically our report for this week. Terry?
Mayor, City Council, Terry Schweitzer, Solid Waste Manager, City of Cape Coral. So a brief update. As of today, 1,965,640 cubic yards of debris picked up in our city right-of-ways, 306,390 from our canals, for a total of 2,269,030 cubic yards. The debris curbside, as we know, right away is going to end this Saturday by our contractor, And we're going to go back to pre-storm solid waste collection and all the other things associated with that. If residents still have hurricane debris, there's a few options that they can have, or they have. Resource Recovery Facility at 10,500 Buckingham Road in Fort Myers. They do not accept shingles there. They can take shingles to the Lee Hendry Regional Solid Waste Disposal Facility. That's at 5500 Church Road out in Felda. And we are having a quarterly bulk and household chemical waste event coming up Saturday, February 4th, where folks can bring their household chemicals and bulk. We are asking that be limited to 2 cubic yards of bulk at this event, as we do expect to see a little bit more than normal. Or the resident drop-off site on Northwest Avenue, just south of Kismet Parkway at 1200 Kismet. That will be back to full operation the Tuesday following this Saturday, and if people want to find more information on that, they can go to the city webpage. As far as debris sites go, haul out is continuing at all debris sites. The Southwest C&D site at 1200 Southwest 30th Avenue, it has less than a trailer load there. At one time, that was the most active site that we had other than Skyline. After this weekend, we do expect the site restoration to begin, and the lot mowing program is overseeing the restoration, make sure all the debris is removed, and it's cleared, and the fences are gone, and the grass is planted, and it'll go back to its natural state. The Northwest site, which was basically just vegetation, that's got minimal grinding taking place now. They do expect to finish the main bulk of that grinding this week, and it will be solely canal vegetation debris after this, and they have moved the new debris pile to the center, closer to the center of the site, to cut down on dust and noise and other things in the neighborhood. The Northeast site is also having a lot of haul out going. I would expect the C&D from there to be maybe another week or two at the most, and that'll be gone. Vegetation, most of that is going to be gone. They are moving that closer to the center, and grinding will also take place near the center of this site again, reducing some of the issues with the surrounding homes. And then, again, any vegetation coming in there will be canal. Skyline, if you haven't been by there, it's basically a big empty field with a little pile of vegetation coming from the debris canals, and that'll continue to be operating as we bring in more vegetation. As far as canal debris removal, that's ongoing. The webpage has been updated with the latest information. There is a map that shows where they've been, and there's also verbiage that talks about where they're going to be in the next couple of weeks. Not written in stone, as we know, as they get into a canal. The amount of debris in a canal may vary, so some canals may take longer than others. And there is approximately 20 crews right now working, doing land-based and marine-based debris removal. So it's really picking up the pace. Just a couple of miscellaneous items. The state, as we know, is still collecting debris. They have not given me a deadline of when they're going to stop their operations. So that still, affects our commercial businesses, our gated communities and such. The gated communities, they have Levita's completed, Sandoval's completed. They're still working in Emerald Cove. That should be completed pretty soon. They're in Weston, Tarpon Point, and then some of the residential homes that have submitted permits or applications to grab from their properties where we couldn't reach from the right-of-way, and then also other commercial businesses as well. Driving around the city, as you probably all have observed, it's looking a lot better. We got some grass in areas that's going to have to come back, but overall, things are moving along. I will still encourage commercial businesses, industrial parks, and others, if they are concerned about their debris to be removed, to please go to the website and get the contact information so that they can have debris removed. And with that being said, I am open for questions.
Thank you. I got just a few questions and comments. First off, the canal debris that you had mentioned, can you explain to us exactly, because I know canal debris versus land debris is handled much differently. Could you kind of tell us what that process is? Is there going to be grinding of that particular canal debris, or is that something that's just hauled away? How does that work?
That's a good question, Mayor. So the vegetation is hauled to a debris site and it's ground up and then hauled to burnt store recycling. The C&D, per our permit, we haul that direct from the canal. It's staged in a right of way, then it's picked up by a debris truck, and then that's hauled directly to the landfill up on Zemmel Road. Right now, very minimal C&D that they've pulled out. We've only actually, as of today, recorded 17 cubic yards, so basically one truckload. There's not a lot. We do expect more, but just right now they haven't. More of that will be grabbed from the Marine base when we go and actually go in the water and grab those porta potties and totes and docks and such out.
Additionally, the land-based versus water-based debris pickup, is the water debris, is that more of a specialized contractor versus the land-based? I know you had mentioned we are wrapping up our land debris pickup. Will any of those crews be able to go over and help on the water side, or is that more of a specialized type removal?
The actual removal of debris, though, the chainsaw cutting of the vegetation and pulling things out of the water with the excavators, that's specialized. They have already, some of the haul trucks have converted over and are picking up the debris in the right-of-ways. And if, just for our residents, if they happen to see a pile of vegetation in the right-of-way in a vacant lot, it should have a green ribbon on it. That's just indicating that it came from the canal, and the crews are aware of it, and it will get picked up.
Okay. And also, I just wanted to let council and the community know, I had spoken last week to our Public Works Director. As we all know, that we still, even though we've done the bulk pickup, we still have a lot of debris, whether it be paper or plastic, in our right-of-ways, especially on our main thoroughfares. And speaking with Mr. Ilchism, apparently at some point in time in the past, we've utilized some crews to pick up some of that trash and debris. I reached out to Sheriff Marcino last week, and his staff will be providing some manpower in order to pick up the loose debris, the paper, the plastics, and I think they're concentrating on the main thoroughfares. So I think that will be good, and I know that, I think 3 days a week, Mr. Ilchism, they've committed to.
Yeah, they're picking up Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and they actually started yesterday.
Right.
So within a week.
So I just want to, to me, I see that as a phase two. So I was glad that Mr. Ilchism mentioned that, and when I reached out to the sheriff, he was more than happy to accommodate, giving us a hand. So I want to thank Sheriff Marcino for that.
Thank you for doing that.
Also, I wanted to mention, mainly, I guess this is for Mr. City Manager, moving forward, as we all know, actually I was out and about the last few days in the city, we still have some locations where property owners, for whatever reason, have not picked up any debris. Some of it's structural damage on the houses, that it is just all over the front yard. I think what was there may have been picked up in the right-of-way, but we still have homes that either none of the debris has been picked up. I noticed some homes that apparently the contractor went and picked debris up in the right-of-way, but the resident owner didn't move the rest of the pile forward. Also, as we know, debris pickup as far as commercially is handled by the state, and there is a process for that. But I think that almost getting to a 4-month mark since the hurricane, my question is, what are we going to do moving forward? Are we going to use our code compliance department to at least try to notify the residents and the commercial businesses? Because we have some commercial businesses, I've noticed in the city too, that have not completed any debris cleanup whatsoever. So I know that there is a process for that, but ultimately it's going to fall back at some point, either on the business owner or the property owner. And I just want to make sure that we have a plan in place. How are we going to start moving forward? Starting with the residential component, since that's pretty much wrapping up now.
So, Mr. Mayor, with regard to the residential component, the answer to your question is exactly as you stated. We do plan to have our code enforcement personnel out there once we complete the last pickup for hurricane-related debris. We will advise them that they will now have to put those materials out and be in compliance with the city's ordinance, so our contract hauler, Waste Pro, can remove those items. If not, they are going to be responsible for disposing of those items. And as Mr. Schweitzer mentioned, there are a variety of methods available to them to dispose of those items. With regard to commercial properties, as you know, the state has been assisting with the removal of debris on commercial properties, so I think we're going to follow a different process and allow the state to continue their work. And once we have word from the state that they are completing their efforts, we will also reach out to those commercial property owners as well to let them know that it's going to be basically their responsibility to remove their debris.
Thank you. Lastly, I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Oldchisholm and Terry. I know, and I think all the council here could probably attest that anytime that council or I think probably the public has reached out, your response has always been quick, no matter what was needed to find a resolution to whatever the problem was. So I know this has been an endeavor for you and your department, and I just want to thank you for all your efforts and for all the employees that go along with this effort. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I would echo the mayor's thanks for the hard work and just the massive effort that has been required to recover even to the point where we are today. I do have a question that I've asked before and just like to have some type of an update in the canal systems, the non-vegetative debris that could be possibly a hazard to navigation because it is submerged. And on the bottom, we've talked about the potential of having some type of sonar devices run our canal system to make sure that we don't have hazards to our boating public. Can you give any report on that?
So part of that process, our permit and FEMA said that we can't hunt for the debris with the sonar. All we can do is verify that the canal is clear. So the process is, as they get a canal cleared, then they're going to verify that with the sonar, just to make sure that there's nothing that's under there that they couldn't see. It hasn't been anything reported to me by the crews at all that there's been any issues as far as finding any debris. I think, it's not, I guess the way to say it is, the freshwater canals, a lot of them aren't as deep as the saltwater, so they've pretty much been able to see everything. Once we get into the saltwater canals, there'll be more use of that sonar. Citizens that have reported debris, they're tracking that, and that's also on the map, on the website. So anybody that's reported debris, they'll see a little purple dot that shows where that was reported. So they use that as well to find those, people that are reported about maybe a partially submerged dock or things of that nature. And then also Lee County, and I don't know exactly how they did it, but there's a Google app that people have actually submitted sonar identified objects in Lee County waters, whether it's our canal system, the river, or anywhere. So they're also using that as another way to verify as they go into a canal that they're finding debris. I have a lot of confidence once this is over that there's not, unless it's embedded in the bottom, it's going to be picked up and we'll find it. So I would just ask again, our boaters, just use caution. As always, right? Even pre-storm, when you're traveling canals, you never know what could end up in a canal. A tree could fall over after a rainstorm or something. Just, please use caution while they're going through the canals.
And if they do come upon, either by contact or by identification by sonar, where would they report that?
311. We are, 311 will still be open, accepting debris calls. We are limiting it to canals, miscellaneous, and property damage at this point. So but if people call 311, they'll still get recorded. Every week I send an updated list from the previous week of canal debris that people do report. Some of them are duplicate, as you can imagine, right? There's multiple homes on a canal, but it still helps to understand where that debris is at.
Okay, thank you. And the last is, we've had some reports, and I've gone by and confirmed it with my own eyes, where there are some areas where it'd be a guess that a storm drain is blocked, and we're getting a good amount of water collection in the road or a parking lot when we get heavier rains, which we don't typically get this time of year as much, but we just did a little bit ago. Are we doing anything with the storm drains to make sure that that those rainwaters make them, get clear of our roadways and parking areas?
Yeah, so we have vacuum trucks. When we get those calls, they actually go out there, try to free any debris that is clogging the drain, or if it's an inlet, they pop the manhole lid and they clean it out. They're actively running the city doing that, clearing manholes and storm inlets now. If there is one that happens during a rain event and there's an isolated issue at the time, again, call the 311 and then we will send either an on-call person there at night, or if it escalates that it's something that's actually like a collapse, then a crew will be called out to fix that. So just start with the 311, the location, they'll put it right in, send it to Public Works, we'll get somebody out there, or you can always call me and I'll get the crew out there immediately. So there's a couple different ways, but we are running the main roads and clearing those as we see, any debris on them.
Okay, thank you.
And then if I could, I'd just like to back up on the mayor's question, if I may, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
So you had asked about the vegetative debris on the canal. So this week, Terry and I and the communication department have been bombarded with residents that are concerned about the process related to removing fallen vegetation that's on the canal bank leaning out into the canal. So I just wanted to explain that process to you also. You have an idea of what our permits say and what they require. So the companies that we've contracted with to remove vegetation that's on the canal bank leaning into the canal, by our Army Corps permit, they have to cut that tree at the root and then stand it back up on the canal in order to prevent erosion. So they're not allowed to remove in its entirety the tree in the canal and the root ball on the bank. They basically chainsaw it at the water line and then use like a bucket to peel it back and fold it back in place. If there's other vegetation in the way of that machinery getting to the canal bank or to that fallen debris in the canal, they're required by the permit and to get to that, to basically cut their way into it. So we've gotten a lot of complaints from residents saying, hey, you removed pepper trees, you removed other, Australian pines, you removed other, maybe a palm tree, I wanted that on the property. But that's their access. They have to clear a way to get to that, and that's part of the contract that we have with them. There is a monitor on site with each of these crews, just like there was with the debris monitor, to make sure that they're not, being overly aggressive and just clearing a whole property. They are looking for endangered species, owls, gopher tortoises. Our environmental staff has gone out and done random but routine checks just to make sure that procedures are being followed. So we have a system in place, and sometimes there is healthy vegetation removed in order to get to the vegetation that was damaged.
Thank you. Councilmember Cummings?
Yes, I kind of want to echo off what the mayor said. Seriously, thank you. You guys really do work fast. A lot of people that have notified me, you guys are literally on the job in less than 24 hours and completed the project. So thank you. And also, Mike Ilchism, I want to thank you for last week, how you had all these projects that you completed and you brought them all under budget. That is huge, and I believe the whole council feels the same way. So I want to thank both of you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you, and I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ceres, our debris contractor. I can tell you, Councilmember Cosden, I know you were here then, and I think that's it, just her and I. Back in 2017, 2018, when Hurricane Irma hit, we are so much more ahead of where we were with that storm. And this storm was 5 times worse. And a good example is that, like you had mentioned, you ride around at our debris sites. I can tell you that the debris sites in Hurricane Irma were there for months and months before that debris was actually removed, and that particular site was put back to pre-hurricane conditions. And when I was riding around the city last week, I went by a few of those sites. Most of them are empty. So the series has done a phenomenal job, not only in the debris pickup that was accomplished throughout this process, compared to Hurricane Ian, night and day response from the city. And then when you look at the debris actually being removed from the site and taken to its final destination, we're just so much further ahead than we were in Hurricane Ian. So I just wanted to thank Ceres, all their workers, all their subcontractors for all their hard work for the last 3.5, almost 4 months. And my last question, had the opportunity to be walking with Senator Scott last week at the Yacht Club. And I noticed that we are utilizing the Yacht Club area for bringing on boats onto the shore, and actually some type of a destruction, breaking down those boats and hauling them out. Any idea how long that endeavor will be going on?
Sure. We signed a permissive use license agreement with ACDC Disaster. They have the contract with the state for all the titled property. I believe that that permissive use license agreement for the location they're in expires at the end of this month. However, we have already reached out to them and asked them if they still have boats that they're recovering in our city, and they said yes, so we're preparing an extension. The boathouse is close to opening up. They're looking at maybe another 30 to 45 days. So we have a meeting, I think, set up for next week with the owner of the boathouse and them to figure out parking and make sure that those uses are not conflicting. But they are a state contractor with the state removing vessels. Some of the vessels are not coming from Cape Coral. We understand that. They're coming from, you know, the Matlacha Pass area, or just boats that drifted out of Cape out. But there was no place in Lee County, no place. Fort Myers Beach was destroyed, Sanibel was destroyed, Pine Island was destroyed. So we were like basically the closest home base for them to be able to perform an efficient operation.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that update and all the updates. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we'll move on to 9G2, which is a permitting process update. Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Grambo.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Matt Grambo, Special Projects Coordinator. Starting with inspections this evening, just like to let everyone know that at the beginning of January, we have been averaging about 785 building inspections each business day, and that's a pretty significant upgrade from where we were a few months ago. Back in November, we were at about 582, and the reason for the substantial increase in the daily number of inspections has been our internal building inspectors continuing their very, very fast pace for building inspections, the large quantity of building inspections per inspector. We're still above the industry average for inspections per day per inspector. And so they're just continuing during our hurricane recovery process to ensure that they're able to complete as many roofing inspections, especially the dry-in inspections, as possible to ensure the quality of our local contractors' work. Additionally, there's been a major increase in the number of inspections performed by the multitude of private providers that we are utilizing during this process. And tonight I'm happy to announce that the city is moving forward with 3 additional private providers that will be able to start immediately after some very brief administrative tasks within the next week or so. And these 3 additional private providers will be able to complete an additional 125 inspections per day. so that in total, the city will be averaging about 900 plus inspections per day. So that's really a lot of movement from where we were even a month ago, and it's going to allow us to really chip away at the monumental task of completing all of the roofing inspections the city needs after Hurricane Ian. Also on the inspections front, we are pleased to see a rise in the utilization of our virtual inspection services. One of our private providers, Innovative Inspection Services, has been a little bit slow to get going with their virtual inspections, especially back in December. But at the beginning of 2023, they're really picking up. A lot of contractors are requesting this type of virtual inspection for roofing inspections. And as you can see on the slide, after starting with about 17.5 daily virtual roofing inspections, Innovative has actually gotten up to last week 110.75. So a dramatic increase in the utilization of their virtual inspection service. And again, their type of virtual inspection is a simultaneous inspection where the contractor needs to have a staff member at the project site and actually use a smartphone or tablet to show the project area to complete the inspection. Based on the success of the virtual inspections and the amount of contractors that are willing to do this type of inspection, the city itself is starting to move forward to develop a virtual inspection process very similar to what the city of Tampa utilizes for certain types of roofing final inspections. And so we're going to be trying to copy a lot of what they succeed with their virtual inspection program. And it'll be initially limited to only final roofing inspections for certain types of roofs, for shingle and metal, not for tile. And our process will involve contractors submitting, similarly to the city of Tampa, an affidavit and a very, very specific series of photos at a certain resolution that'll be submitted to the city, and one of our city inspectors will review that material and resolve the inspection in EnerGov, either pass the inspection or fail the inspection with a comment. And so we're currently working with our chief building inspector and our staff here in development services to develop that process, and hope to get it implemented in short time so that we can be prepared for the surge in the roofing final inspections that is sure to come in the coming weeks and months as all the dry-in work is complete and the final roofs are ready to be inspected. And one of the benefits of our virtual inspection program, our proposed virtual inspection program for the roofing finals, is that it'll be asynchronous. So contractors will be able to take the requested photos, send them to the city, and not have to be on the project site for the virtual inspection. So that's a little bit of additional convenience for our roofing contractors as they work through a really huge volume of roofing work that they're doing in our community. Moving over to the permit process. We've had a relatively strong beginning to 2023. Over the first 15 business days of the year, still an extremely high volume of roofing permits that have been received and issued, most of which have been done through the push-button permit process where the permit's issued immediately through our EnerGov portal online. But along with our roofing permits, we've also been really trying to stay on top of our other types of building permits. You can see we are ahead in terms of residential construction or single-family residence permits received versus permits issued. And if you look at some data from 2022, so the same time period last year, obviously the most glaring data on this slide is the number of roofing permits because of Hurricane Ian, but the permits issued for residential construction or single-family residence, the first 15 business days, year over year, we are actually issuing more now along with all the roofing and Hurricane Ian related permits. So I think that's a real testament to our permitting division staff members who, over the last 10 months, 11 months have just worked incredibly hard to stay on top of very high volumes of work, dealing with a hurricane, dealing with a software system that has been slow and difficult to use, not the greatest tool for them to conduct their duties, as well as our ITS staff and staff members in development services who have really worked hard to work to improve our system so that we're able to handle not only a hurricane, but also day-to-day business of the city. Speaking of changes that we're working on, we have a lot in the works right now. Last Tuesday, we implemented our revised permitting service counter changes. All of our permits are now processed through the EnerGov-based workflows. Permit applications are still received at the permitting counter. However, permits are not issued at the counter. All permits are issued through the EnerGov system through back office processing. And again, the purpose for this was to enable our staff members to have a single queue of permit material to review, and also to encourage our contractors to utilize our push-button permits and other efficiencies that are available through the EnerGov CSS portal. The immediate issuance of building permits right now, after the transition, is only through our push button permits, the 12 types of push button permits that we have through capecoral.gov/intergov. And this policy applies to both contractors and owner builders. Submitting permit application documents at the counter, everything goes through the same approval process through back office Intergov processing. We've also been working on preparations for the proposed contractor licensing changes that are on the agenda tonight through Ordinance 1023. So staff members have been working on proposing some changes in the test environment to implement to accompany this change, which is proposed to be effective on February 1st. So we wanted to be ahead of the game on that to make sure that there were no service disruptions during that transition. And we've been, of course, working on our overall comprehensive permit restructuring, which is the technical specialist tracked and non-tracked permit workflow developments. That is really a full reconfiguration of our Intergov system for efficiencies, to have technical benefits, less slow performance for our permit coordinators, more rapid permit turnaround times for our contractors and other permit applicants. And so we're hard at work on that. We have a dedicated team that is focused on that particular project. And we're hoping to share some additional information, including a Gantt chart and our progress on that overall reconfiguration very shortly with council. But as that's ongoing, we wanted to make sure that some of the highly requested changes in Intergov from our building industry and contractor community were implemented prior to diving into a really substantial reconfiguration project. So we are going to launch our master single-family residential permit on February 6th, so that's a week from Monday. Staff members are currently testing that. We'll conduct some final testing next week, and that permit is scheduled to go live a week from Monday on February 6th. This is a very highly requested change from the building industry for those who have mastered single-family plans, and this should increase the efficiency of the city in processing those permits, reducing the review time involved with that type of permit. And then finally, this morning, myself, members of the Information Technology Services Division and Development Services met with some representatives from Tyler Technology to have a kickoff for a new engagement with them through their Intergov EPL Software Assist program. So by participating in this program, we're going to receive some expedited addressing of the issues that we send to Tyler Technologies regarding our Intergov platform. They will also be able to review any proposed changes that we're doing in the system and offer guidance in configurations to create some certainty that the changes that we are proposing are going to result in the benefits that we're seeking. And it will also open up some additional training opportunities for our staff members in permitting services through what they call their virtual labs, continuing education portal, which will allow a lot of our new staff members who weren't around prior to Intergov Go Live and weren't able to benefit from a lot of the training opportunities provided by Tyler, an opportunity to get a refresher or get up-to-date training information to ensure that all of our staff members in permitting and development services have the knowledge, skills, and abilities in the system to be able to perform their job efficiently. And with that, I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I don't see anyone that has any questions. Again, I wanted to thank you for all your hard work. I know you've been at this for some time now, so I want to thank you and all staff that really, I think we are in a much better spot today than we were several months ago. And I know we're not completely there yet, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. So I just wanted to thank you for all your efforts and all staff's efforts to get us to where we are today.
Thank you.
I do have one.
Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, as far as virtual, so are you doing the roof inspections as well, all virtual? So the roof is done and you guys look at it virtually and you can improve it that way versus having someone go out there, a real body going out to inspect it, to approve it?
So we'll be doing both. We'll be doing in-person roofing inspections. Our internal staff, building inspectors, will still be out in the field conducting roofing inspections, as well as our private providers who still do inspections in person. But on top of that, we're also adding additional roofing inspections. So the name of the game is just increasing capacity, being able to do as many roofing inspections in a day as possible so that we can shorten the requested inspection date time and have projects completed more quickly.
I'm not a contractor, but I know this is more in your field, Mayor. I think the virtual is great, for the windows and, trying to put that house together. But for the final inspection, don't you think it's important to have the body to actually go out to inspect the final the project? It's finished, completed, so it doesn't come back on us if we have a storm and they claim the roof is done and then the rain comes leaking through and they say, hey, the city, said it was done, and now we got an insurance issue happening. You as a contractor, how do you feel about that virtually? Do you think you can really look at that roof as it's completed?
I think staff is just talking about roofing, virtual roofing inspections that can be finalized out. A very complex type project, of course you wouldn't want to do that. But something as easily as, a virtual inspection for a final roof, the inspector, because they're speaking with a inspector on the line, they're looking at the pictures, they'll direct them in an area the same as if they were there. So I think I personally don't have an issue with that personally, only because it's a minor type inspection. It's not a very complex. I'm not calling in a final for a whole house. I wouldn't expect our permitting department to allow a virtual inspection for a new residential home during the final inspection, because that's a very complex and detailed type of inspections. Those inspections can last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes easily. So your very minor inspections, I think, can be done virtually with no problem. I will tell you, there are some contractors that love that process, and there's some contractors that don't like the virtual inspection, simply because they have to have a representative from their company there, and they don't want to tie up an individual for that. They would prefer to call in and just let a building inspector go out, because they don't have to be there. So you kind of got both sides of the spectrum there. You got some inspectors that like it, and then on the others, builders or contractors that like it, and then you have some contractors on the other side that they don't want to tie up the manpower, just let the city go ahead and do it. So you kind of get both. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. At one time, we had talked about a potential triage, if you would, for prioritizing certain inspections that were required. And while we're doing a whole lot better right now than we were, we certainly will get an onslaught here coming pretty soon with all the roofing inspections that we've done, and plenty of the other inspections for those folks that are repairing their homes from the hurricane. With that in mind, is there anything on the drawing board to prioritize those inspections that are hingent on something else then happening? Of course, in the construction of a new home, before you can move on, you have to pass this inspection to move on to the next, where the hot water heater that needs to be inspected that just got replaced could wait a day or two. Has there been any continuation of thought of that?
So the assistant city manager and the chief inspector and I had a similar discussion just yesterday regarding the ways that they were able to manipulate the inspection scheduling system and ways to hold different inspection types from different slots over the amount of days that are currently being scheduled for. And it's my understanding, but we could provide you with some additional information on the capabilities of the system, but it was my understanding that it was very difficult to specify specific types of inspections and reserve slots in the system and through the mechanism that they're scheduled currently.
Is there a software component that could make a determination that would then be, if you will, searchable by the system as it prioritizes those appointments?
I think the way it works with the current software is that we open up slots for potential inspections, and then the contractors are able to go on the website and pick up those slots immediately. So that's what's currently happening with roofing inspections, is as soon as a slot is open, and I don't think you can specify limit the types of inspections for that particular slot. They get picked up really very, very rapidly for roofing, depending on the type of inspector. So I think that the inspection slot in the software system is based on the type of inspector that's available for that slot, and those are selected by the contractor if they have the availability. So I think we can look into that a little bit more further, and I can work with our ITS department to see if there's ways to change configurations to offer us flexibility in triaging different types of inspection types. But at this point, it's my understanding that that would be very, very difficult to achieve, if not impossible, with our current system.
Okay, thank you.
And I will just elaborate a little bit, Councilmember Steinke. I've probably called at least 5 inspections in the last 2 weeks for new residential homes, from footer, slabs, tie beams, those types of inspections. Every one of those I've gotten the next day. So I don't think that we're having an issue there. I think the main issue is roofing permits. But I will tell you, on my end, as a builder with new homes, the last 2 weeks I have 0 problems getting an inspection the next day. Any other discussion? Thank you for the update. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think before we get into ordinances and resolution, 6:25, we'll take a break till 6:35, and then we will pick up on item 10. everybody? All right, I'll call the meeting back to order, and we will start with item 10, ordinances and resolution. 10A is public hearings, and we will start with ordinance 89-22. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 89-22, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Land Development Code by amending Article 4 zoning districts, Table 4.1.6, Use Table, regarding mobile food vendors and mobile food courts as conditional uses in the P, C, I, INST, NC, CC, MXB, MX7, and SC zoning districts. Amending Article 4, Zoning Districts, Chapter 2, Specific Regulations by District, Section 4.2.6, 4.2.7, 4.2.8, 4.2.9, 4.2.11, 4.2.12, 4.2.13, 4.2.14, and 4.2.15 regarding mobile food vendors and mobile food courts, and to make zoning district text regulations consistent with the zoning use table. Amending Article 5, Development Standards, Chapter 11, Conditional Uses, to create Section 5.11.13, Mobile Food Vendors. Regarding the establishment of zoning regulations for mobile food vendors, creating Section 5.11.14, Mobile Food Courts, regarding the establishment of zoning regulations for mobile food courts, and by amending Article 11, Definitions, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 11.2, Definitions regarding mobile food vendors and mobile food courts, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Good evening, council members. For the record, I'm Patrick Carlton White, a senior planner in DSD downstairs. This item is it's been a work in progress for a long time, and I have a brief PowerPoint presentation to go over with you. The present city code does not address any regulations for mobile food vendors. We had, as a city, tried to initiate some mobile food vending codes in the past. They were unsuccessful. Right now, any mobile food vendor, food cart, and someone that's selling food from a food trailer doesn't have a certificate of zoning compliance. They don't have an approval from the city to be there. They have, some of them have a business tax receipt, which allows us to collect taxes on their business, but a lot of those are they're linked to their house, not to a piece of commercial land. Because of that, there's no grandfathering of any of these existing food trucks. In 2020, there was a House bill which stated that cities cannot totally ban mobile food vendors, and it preempted a lot of our local regulations that we could put on mobile food dispensing vehicles. Those are your real mobile self-contained vehicles. The city drafted regulations, and we discussed them at multiple CAL meetings. They were also presented to the CRA and reviewed by the Planning Commission. At the January 12th CAL meeting, revisions were made to clarify our definitions and provide standards for food truck courts and mobile food vendors. At a later meeting, we obtained input from you that you were generally satisfied with the way Lee County was going. And at December 14th, you further supported that you were satisfied with the presented code based largely on Lee County's regulations, but wanted some improved enforcement language, which has since been added. The proposed regulations before you tonight were redrafted and predominantly adapted from the Lee County Code. That code didn't have provisions for mobile food courts. Instead, we looked to our neighbor Bonita Springs and based the mobile food court code on some of their regulations. This proposed ordinance has an effective date of 90 days to allow these businesses in the city to come into compliance with code. As Kimberly mentioned, we're amending 4 different sections of the code. We're adding in some definitions, including a mobile food dispensing vehicle as defined by the state, a mobile food vendor, which is a collection of mobile food dispensing vehicles and other things doing like services, and a mobile food court, which will allow the permanent location of 3 or more mobile food vehicles. These sites would require some infrastructure for these vehicles and generally include public seating and a definition we adapted from Bonita Springs. So mobile food vendors are like the ones we're picturing here. These are self-contained vehicles. They have a self-sufficient tag that is a license from the state. These could be mobile food vendors, but in fact they are more semi-permanent. They're frequently left on a property. They frequently do not remove any of the seating or tents or fences or other improvements that they make because they've been there a long time. The proposed code is going to exempt a number of mobile food vehicles. That includes those that are at a private event for less than a day, those that are part of a special event, and any operating during a declared state of emergency. The code's going to generally allow these mobile food vendors in basically all of our non-residential zoning districts. It's going to prohibit them in our residential zoning districts unless they're located with the city's permission on a park or recreational facility, a city parking lot, or a government-owned facility. And there's a few sub-regulations that they'll have to follow within the ordinance. The proposed ordinance prohibits these vehicles from vending or conducting business in the street right-of-way or a right-of-way easement alongside our roads, with the small exception of ice cream vehicles, which again have some minute regulations on them. So some notable changes. This mobile food vending code is as proposed, will require that the mobile food vendors leave the site when not vending, and that's every day. It prohibits the deployment of tarps, tents, outdoor seating. It prohibits permanent water and wastewater connections. It limits signs. 11 of the 17 codes within this proposed ordinance on mobile food vendors were adapted from the counties. The other aspect that this code does is it introduces the mobile food court use. A photo of one of these mobile food courts is displayed here in Naples, one from Disney Springs, one from St. Augustine, and we're aware that one is in progress in Bonita Springs. These mobile food courts would require a vending space, which is a designated location that would be shown on the site plan. And that vending space would have utility connections to permanently accommodate a mobile food vendor. Think of it as like a docking port, where the mobile food vendor would go there and it would stay there for long periods of time because it would be connected into primary infrastructure provided by the site. For every mobile food vendor that was on one of these mobile food courts, in one of these spaces, 3 parking spaces would be required. On-site bathrooms would be required based on the occupancy of any seating, other uses, and the vendor themselves. And the way that this mobile food court would be permitted is through the city's administrative site plan review process. It would require all of the improvements that a non-residential building or non-residential building would have to do. It would need to provide on-site lighting, curb gutter sidewalk, required landscaping and buffers, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be a non-residential use. For the mobile food courts, 5 of the 13 codes within were adapted from Bonita Springs. On the topic of enforcement, if a mobile food vendor is violating these codes and located on city property, including our right-of-ways, then the police may warn, ticket, or educate. Similarly, if a mobile food vendor is violating these codes on private property, then code compliance can issue citations, fines, notices of violation to the offending MFV, the property owner, or both, depending on the violation, and of course, or educate. Staff is recommending adoption of the ordinance to establish clear and consistent regulations for this industry. On December 7th, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by a 5-2 vote. I will stand by for any questions.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. If there's anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 89-22, please come forward. We will use the podium to my left, your right, for any community or citizens input.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of council. I'm Gary Aubuchon, and I represent a group that is bringing forward Cape Coral's first food vending court. It was interesting in the presentation, you saw these, what the industry calls food truck parks, right? You saw them in Naples, Bonita, Disney, St. Augustine, and they are in some of the coolest cities across the country. We're not going to be first, but we are going to be best in the state of Florida. We are really excited to bring this feature, this amenity, this regional draw to Cape Coral, but we require the passage of this ordinance before you so that staff has clarity on what they're reviewing. We're already in for site review. We will be in for building permit within the next 2 weeks. And right now, without this ordinance, staff doesn't have clarity on what they're reviewing and what they're accounting for. So we are very much in support of this ordinance. We think staff did an excellent job writing it. They had the good fortune of having been able to look at other communities that have dealt with this first and adopt the best of those practices and put it into this ordinance. And I think what it does is it assures the city of Cape Coral that we're going to have not only quality food courts, but we're going to have a beautiful city throughout our city with the rest of the regulations that is in this ordinance. So I thank you for your time, and like always, stand by if you have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any other one wishing to speak on ordinance 89-22, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 89-22?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, before council begins its deliberations on this item, I'd like to ask the city attorney a question. I believe the way it's written now, the ordinance, if it is adopted by city council tonight, takes effect 90 days from now. And I think the purpose of that was to assist, in the event that the ordinance passes, to assist those mobile food vendors in removing their items and so on and so forth. However, I want to make sure that if a situation presents itself as was described by Mr. Aubuchon, that an applicant seeking to establish a food truck court does not have to wait the full 90 days to go through site plan review and get the appropriate approvals from city staff. So can you clarify that?
Technically, yes. Ordinance says that the I think it says the ordinance does not take effect until 90 days. So that's the whole ordinance. It's not just if you want to apply under one part of it, it's the whole ordinance. And it's for the purpose of educating and allowing people to understand what they can do and things of that kind. That period could be shortened and that period could be lengthened if it's not enough time, if council believes that.
Thank you for that clarification.
My question, Madam City Attorney, in our deliberation, if we decide to move forward with this ordinance, can we inform the city manager with any food court permit application that they can move forward with that process, understanding what the adopted ordinance specifies, and so they can at least continue their process. My question is, can we mention that in our motion if our motion maker wants to revisit that, or can at least our community development department go through the process of approving it and go through the steps, but maybe not issue the permit for 90 days. So I guess that's a two-part question.
That is a two-part question, and I think there are two answers. One is the city could agree that it's going to review an application with the understanding that it's not going to issue until after the 90 days if the application meets the qualifications of the ordinance. Another alternative is to say maybe the ordinance takes effect in 60 days, 30 days, with the understanding that staff would engage not so much in violations with, because remember, the time frame was established to try to give people an understanding and to give people an opportunity to come into compliance. But you could also accomplish that by saying, you know, we really want to use these 60 days and a period of time even after that to primarily educate food truck vendors or whatever about what their options are and how they can come into compliance, rather than immediately on day 61 going out and citing all of them. And then technically things could be issued in 60 days, 30 days, 15. You could actually make it effective
Right.
immediately. I'm not suggesting you do that, but it doesn't have to be 90 days.
Okay. I guess my question for the city manager is, any idea of the permitting process for a food court? I'm sure, I know that staff has already had discussions with this particular individual. Do we have an approximate application process timeline?
Yeah, the applicants have already submitted their first site plan, and the review comments should be complete by the end of this week. Then there's typically there's almost always a second review and often a third review cycle. That whole process usually takes under 6 months, with them already being in a month.
So within 6 months, is that the total process?
That's usually total process for a site plan approval.
Okay.
Based on the experience.
So the
that I have
90
with site
days is probably not a factor then?
It's probably not a factor.
Okay. All right.
Probably not a factor.
All right. So if we don't feel that it's going to be a factor just because of the length of time of the application process, you know, it might be a moot point, but Mr. City Manager, you might be able to enlighten us a little more.
So, Mr. Mayor, what I was going to offer City Council is perhaps shortening that time from 90 days to 60 days.
Okay. And then, of course, we have discretionary availability to us as well, you know, when we're educating, because I don't really think the process as far as the food courts is a concern. It's the process with the vendors that we have in our city that are there now. And I think we probably have some discretionary powers there that even if we reduce that time down to 60 days, in theory, we could still give those particular vendors at least 90 days to come into compliance and make that a part of the educational process moving forward. So for me, I will support this ordinance. I would support if we reduced it from 90 to 60 days and let staff use the discretionary measures for educating the vendors that we have in our city now for the next 90 days, but that's something that staff can do as far as their discretion. Councilmember Cummings.
Excuse me. Let me ask a couple questions here, because this is a serious matter tonight on what we're about to vote on. We're talking small businesses. We're talking about entrepreneurs that have worked hard to get where they are, mom and pop shops. Are you asking us to take these mobile food trucks and going to put them on a lot, all mobile food trucks in Cape Coral? Because let me remind everybody up here, we are not Bonita Springs, we are not Orlando, and we are not Naples. We have a huge landmass in Cape Coral. I am not going to drive from one side of town to a whole nother side of town in 40 minutes because, oh, I want it brought from a food truck. The reason why we like our food trucks is because they're close by to our homes. So when we're working and we're getting off work and we want to head home, but we don't want to go into a restaurant, we now have a choice. These are options. You're taking away options of small businesses and putting them just strictly in one direction. You guys have to really think about this. Now, I am for, absolutely. If you want it, an area where you have all the food trucks, festivities, fine, do that. Give them an option. But if they decide they want to go on Del Prado and have a broad, or they want to go on Pine Island and have a burger or get some rice and beans, they can do that. But if they want to go to a food court, a mobile food court for entertainment, they can do that too. You can have an option.
Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence, I can address that.
Yes, sir.
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Vince Cotero, Deputy Director of Development Services. If I may, a little bit of history, which can put this in context for you, Council Member. This ordinance was not the one written tonight, a different version, was on the docket in late October 2013 when I came to work for the city. Many public hearings were held. We were sent back to revise it. Council directed us, the city manager, to have staff revise it. We went and produced another version a couple of years later, because it took us that long and it was delayed. We had a stakeholder committee that met for over a year, and we came up with another version, which was discussed for on and off for another 2-3 years. And after that failed, we were told to stand down. So the ordinance was in abeyance. At that time, we inventoried all of the mobile food vendors, carts, trucks, combination of both, where they have skirting around them that can be moved, but they look semi-permanent. And we came up with 19. I check a lot when I drive around, and I still have an unofficial inventory that I keep in my notes. We're about the same. We've lost a few, gained a few. This ordinance allows both that you just talked about, what Patrick prepared and showed you. The court is one option. The other option is the traditional truck, cart, or semi-permanent facility. We brought this ordinance to the council, I guess we're probably a year and a half, 2 years into this third version of it. And one of the items that we had in the ordinance was the same rule that we had back in 2013 and say 2016 or 17, which was that under certain circumstances, the owner would have to move their facility, their structure, if you will, and go to commissary. But there could be a permanent nature for some of them if they went through the site plan process, because we had some that were not going anywhere. Okay. The most recent version that you see is based on council direction to go in a different direction to assure that the owners, the vendors of these businesses move the vehicle. The court is different. That's handled through a zoning process and a site plan process and building permits. The food truck would have to meet certain, or other types of uses, like the cart, would have to meet different criteria and receive an approval based on the ordinance, whether that be a site plan or just a site permit, which is probably one of the lowest forms of permit that we issue, one of the least complicated. And they would receive a business tax receipt if their business office was in Cape Coral, like any other business. And the one more thing, which is probably one of the most important, and that's a zoning approval. I'll just say one more thing and remind the council that when we brought the first ordinance up to the council during my tenure in 2013 and beyond, I reminded the city council that none of them, except the cart, the true hot dog cart that you see on the roadway. There was one in the industrial park for years, and then I think she moved to one of the hardware stores, and I haven't seen her in a while. She may be in another facility. That was allowed.
in the old ordinance. Everything else, the trucks, the semi-permanent one, like you've seen in the photographs, they're not allowed. We didn't give them a zoning approval. We told them to come in and get a BTR. And we checked, we double checked on it. I even had a phone call from a council member before the Rotary Art Festival, I believe in 2015 or 16, that said, I got somebody that's bringing a truck in. They made an arrangement with so-and-so and they want to put it on their vacant lot. I said, okay. I had a bigger problem with Rotary than I did with the other side of it, because they make arrangements for food vendors to come in, and here's somebody that came in on their own. Well, he was a good trooper. He hung in there with us, and I said, come in Monday and get a business tax receipt, and he did. But we never gave a zoning approval, and to my knowledge, we haven't, because I've given direction in the department, no one gets a zoning approval until this is fixed. And that's where we are, 10 years later, virtually 10 years later.
I respect that, but the mobile food truck business has really soared in the last 2 years. Since we had a pandemic in 2020, it shut down a lot of businesses. And let's not forget us small business owners up here that started small, that grew largely. And I respect with what you're saying, Vincent, but we also got to respect the small business owners.
Well, that's what this ordinance does.
Right, but we had a pandemic, then we had a hurricane. They had to get creative. They were out there. Here's the thing. I understand what you're saying. I'm getting to that. But if they're getting permission from property owners to place their mobile food truck on there, I don't know what the problem is. As long as they're active, they're permitted, and they have a state, their state licenses, and they have a city sales tax, what is wrong with that? Why is all of a sudden we're having a problem with that? You can have two options. You got mobile food court. On a Saturday, we want to go to the festivities. We're going to grab our family. We're going to go to Obashan's place and enjoy the day. I'm leaving work. I got my kids. I'm picking them up. I want to grab a brat. It's on my way home. I don't want to go in a restaurant. I just want to go home. I don't want to go through fast food. I just want to grab some food real quick and head home. I don't see why everyone's making this such a big issue. We are talking, you guys, small businesses. This is how they feed their family. This is their money, hard working. Now, you know, what would be next? We have hairdressers that are mobile. We don't want that. We have groomers that are mobile. I mean, what you're starting is not good. I'm telling you guys, it's not good. We are supposed to be pro-business. This is not pro-business. It's not. I'm not for this. As an entrepreneur and understanding how hard it was to begin my business, I can't. Sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Just a couple things. One is I would speak in favor of the ordinance only because it's not dissuading a small business from being in business. It's just setting some rules and regulations that they need to follow, as every business has out there. But the other piece that I'm just curious about is we definitely make a separation between mobile food vendors and mobile food courts. And since we do, and since we're wanting existing businesses to have the opportunity to make the changes in their business so they comply with the ordinance, since we don't have any mobile food courts that need time to make any changes, is there any possibility of, since there is a separation between those two, having different effective dates for each of those two types of businesses that are controlled by this ordinance? In other words, give the 90 days to the mobile food vendors, but since we have no mobile food courts right now, the rules regarding mobile food courts could go into effect right away. No one needs to change. Is that possible?
If it's the council's pleasure, we could amend the effective date as the part about section 11, I think it's 11.6.
No. 51116.
51116 are the courts, and we could make that have an earlier effective date than the remainder of the ordinance. But
I would think that would help solve the issue to make sure that those people that are existing have time to apply, and it would allow city to give immediate direction, if you will, for those people applying for permits. The business venture presented to us by Mr. Abishan this evening doesn't mean we won't get additional ones down the pipe 3 months, 4 months from now, a week from now, once they've seen some of these pictures and had possibly been thinking about it already. Our city officials would be able to speak to it immediately for those people looking, seeking permits to do the same.
I think we could do it. I think the cleaner way is to just shorten the effective period. You could make it effective immediately for all of the whole thing, and just understand that for the food vendors, the mobile trucks, that they were going to need more time for education because more of them are existing, more of them have to change what they're doing and how they're operating. Whereas the food courts are going to come in fresh. They're going to have to comply from the beginning or not be approved. But if push comes to shove and you definitely want to bifurcate, I think we could do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, just real quickly before I move on to Councilmember Welsh, it sounds like we have one applicant for a food court. We already know that process is going to take longer than the 90 days. It almost sounds like we're trying to find a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist. Why we wouldn't just keep it as is, because we've already heard from staff that it's going to be at least, a 4 to 6 month process for the application process for the one applicant that we have for a food court in our city. So it's almost like we're trying to find a solution to a problem that I don't see really exist unless I'm missing something. So just real quick comment for that. Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to suggest maybe moving it from 90 to 60 days as a second, but I don't see that as being an issue from hearing from staff. I did want to bring up that we're not trying to take away from small business by doing this. We're just trying to make sure that mobile food vendors are vendors in response to Councilwoman Cummings' issues with this ordinance. This just means that you have to move and you have to comply with the city. Mobile dog groomers go to your house and they groom your dog. If there was a mobile hair salon, they would have to go to your house, cut your hair, and then they would leave. They wouldn't set up shop outside your house for 2 weeks because it's a good location. Or they would come back every day and use the commissary. So I think what we're doing with this ordinance is just making sure that a mobile food vendor is mobile. And I'm in agreement with it. I think staff has worked on this for many years, and taking what we did from the county and taking what we did with Bonita, we've come with a good solution for Cape Coral. So I'm for this, and we'll be voting yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Cummings.
For the ones that choose to go to a food court, if this becomes one of the options, I feel they should have the option. That's awfully soon, if you ask me. This is just, coming out, and you have so many people that has been hit by a hurricane. They're still not in their home. They still haven't received their insurance. They have all these issues coming about, and now we're going to say, oh, and by the way, you've got 90 days, 60 days, and you have to move. Seriously. I'm just, there's quite a few of us that was damaged, that were homeless. Now, can you imagine if you were told you had only so much time that it was time for you to move? You guys, we just had a hurricane. We haven't even really recovered from this. Why are we talking about this now? To me, this is wrong. This is bad timing. And I'm going to remind everyone up here on this dais, people are not going to forget this. These business owners are not going to forget what happens tonight and what your decision is. It's a big city, but a small city, and people talk, and they talk fast. And you all know this. I feel like there's a better way that we can come up with solving this problem. I understand if they are stationary and they're not moving, I'm in agreement with that. But if they are on a property and they have permission from the owner, they should be left alone. Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd.
We're not, I don't think we're, unless I'm wrong, we're not saying that food trucks only can be at food courts. They can be at all the different commercial sites they're at. So we're not devastating them. They just have to be what they're supposed to be, and that's mobile. But every night? Yeah, because it's mobile. That you're mobile. You're supposed to move. And there are reasons of safety, you know, fire, I mean, all kinds of things.
But
They're
they can't
mobile.
take it home
So
'cause
I
of
don't
our-
understand why they can't move at the end of the day. Every other business that's mobile is mobile.
Where do they take these trucks?
Councilmember
Oh, sorry.
Cummings, Councilmember Shepherd has the floor.
So, I understand your compassion for these people to have these businesses, but I'm going to tell you, they've all been here over years knowing this was coming and know they had to prepare to be mobile. Every other business in this city has to comply to rules and regulations for their type of business. None of them are going to be surprised that they have to be mobile, and it shouldn't be a problem because their businesses are already on wheels. They just have to move them and come back the next day. So I don't see a problem. We're not telling them that they only can go to a food court. They can go to different commercial sites all over the city. They just have to be mobile. And I'm for the ordinance just for the safety reasons when we talked about it, last time. It's unsafe. There's a lot of situations that can happen. They have propane. They have, there are things that can happen. They have to be mobile. If there's a situation and we need to have them move, they need to be able to move. I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Long, you had your light on. Did you turn it off? Yes, sir. All right. Councilmember Cosden.
Thank you, Mayor. So I agree, actually, that this will harm businesses. I've been against this since the very beginning. My issue is making trucks move every night, not allowing them to remain on commercial property, even though we let dump trucks and who knows what, work trucks, everything else on commercial property overnight. We're saying they can't be there overnight, even if the property owner permits it. Someone just said they'll go home at night. And what's the big deal? They won't go home. They'll go to storage. It'll cost them thousands of dollars a year. These are business owners. We're directly doing something that will harm them. And I can't support it. I wish we could separate this from the food court concept because I love that idea, and maybe we can. But as of now, I'm going to be a no.
Councilmember Cummings.
Just like Councilwoman Cosden stated, where do they go at night? Where can they park at? You can't park at your house, so where do they go? And if they do go to a storage unit, it costs a lot of money, It becomes a havoc. So I understand, Councilman Shepherd, what you're saying, but I don't think you understand what I was saying. Absolutely, I'm in agreement. Mobile, active, licensed, permitted, all these things, absolutely. But to move every single night, that's where I have a problem. If they have permission from a property owner, leave them alone. But if they are immovable and they've just kind of placed themselves like I'm a brick and mortar, no. Then they go over in this other direction, the mobile food courts. This can go in both directions. Yes, Obashan, I love the idea. I want to come out on the weekend with my family and have fun and entertain, and the kids can go get a taco over here, Mexican over here. That is an awesome idea. Great thing that you want to bring to Cape Coral. It's awesome. But I'm not in agreement to take away these mobile food trucks that has permission from these business owners to put their mobile food trucks on to make money. They're feeding their family. They've put so much money into this business. And let me tell you, they don't make a lot of money. It's food. And what do we do with food? When we got leftovers, we throw it away. And we don't even have that many mobile food trucks in here. How many do we have in the city? 20, 30 is what we're talking about? We're not talking hundreds, you guys, or thousands. You're talking 20 or 30 small businesses. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm going to call the question.
Okay, Councilmember Hayden called the question, so we need, no, you
No,
can't
you can't.
now. We have to vote on call the question. Councilmember Hayden had making a,
I need a second.
Can you explain that for the members?
call the
that are new?
question for people that are new that may not know that. Anytime that you're having a discussion or a debate and a council member calls the question, you have to vote on call the question. And what that is, it means that all deliberations stop, all communication stops pertaining to this particular topic. And a majority of vote by council would have to approve that. If that is approved, then we would move directly to a vote, since we have a motion and a second on the floor. So call question has
I
been.
need a second.
So we need a majority vote on that. I don't even think we need a second, but it's a majority vote. Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Cosden?
No.
Cummings?
No.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
No.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
So that's a 4-4.
Okay,
Motion
so
to call
the.
the
Now I can
question
speak.
denied.
So the call to question
It's
did not
denied.
pass, so I'll open the floor back up for discussion. Councilmember Long, your light was on next.
Thank you. Yeah, so that kind of forced my hand as far as where my vote was at. I had my light on, which I understand he didn't know when he called the question, so this gives me an opportunity to speak. So this has gone through many variations, and first I appreciate staff and all the concessions that they've gave and trying to appease the council and the majority of council. I wish that I wish that it wasn't married together with regards to the food truck court. And the reason being is I have no problem with the food truck court and the proposal itself. And I'd be happy to pass that through tonight if we could, because I don't want to delay that project. I think what Councilmember Cummings was getting to, and she might have jumped a few steps, and I don't mean to speak for her, when she said basically forcing all these trucks to go into the park. If I understand it correctly, the overnight prohibition does not appeal to the park, the food truck court. You can theoretically park there overnight. So in general, I think the gap that for me I was trying to make was, if these trucks otherwise that are being forced to move overnight have no other place to go because storage is to some extent prohibitively expensive, then they will more or less be forced to go to this one park, creating a couple different issues. But you know, for me, the overnight thing, again, it falls back to them having the approval of the property owners to do that. And we're taking away that ability and then forcing them to go into storage. you know, you look at the people that have spoken on Facebook or online. I think the Breeze had a poll with regards to whether they should or shouldn't move it, and I believe like 30 people said that we should move forward with this, and I think like 500 said leave it alone. These people should be able to move forward. And so to me, this is purely cosmetic unless I'm missing something about this being a life safety issue or something else. The part of making them move overnight, to me, at least in a large degree, would be cosmetic. And to have people do that and affect their livelihoods and that sort of thing, it gives me a little bit of cause for concern. So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Councilmember Shepherd.
We might have an answer here. The goal is we want to make sure that they move, because we don't want, I mean, we've seen the pictures of the ones that never move, the tires are flat. You know, if they had to move for an emergency, they can't, because they just don't have the ability. They've been still so long. Could we do something with, they have to move a certain amount of feet? And what I mean by that is, we have a food truck that's in the front parking lot of a commercial business. And then at the end of the day, they close and they move the truck to the rear of the property. Okay, and that solves the problem that they're mobile. We know they moved. They're not creating a problem where they're a health hazard or anything like that. I'm just trying to achieve the goal of, we want to know that they move, but maybe trying to create something that's helpful. Some of these places where they park are large commercial areas, and they park up front, so they pack up at the end of the day and they move to the back. To me, that satisfies me with that they're able to move, because with me, it's a safety issue. So that's all I wanted to add.
All right, I guess I'll jump in here again. You know, when you look at this ordinance, I've read it several times. First and foremost, I think that we have to establish clear, concise regulations so staff can apply it accordingly. When you look at some of our neighboring cities and Lee County, I mean, we almost verbatim developed this ordinance to match theirs, which again, I think that's important, that geographically in our area regionally, you know, we're almost applying the same principles across the board. You know, when you look through the ordinance, you know, when it talks about mobile food dispensing vehicles, it's defined as in the Florida statute, 509.102. It tells us that it's supposed to be mobile. You look up the definition of mobile, it's being able to move easily and quickly. That's the definition of mobile. You know, I think for such a long period of time, we haven't had any type of regulation in place, and that's probably why we find ourselves in the position we are today, because it's kind of morphed into something. Now, we're not telling any business owner that they can't operate their business. We are telling them they have to move each day. They can go back to that same location on a daily basis if they choose to do that, or go to a different location. You know, when you talk about, you know, that it could be an additional expense for that for that business owner, because that's exactly what this is. It's a business. I have those expenses myself. You know, I have a commercial trucks, I have trailers. I can't just pull in a parking lot at the gas station and drop it off, and I'll be back tomorrow to pick it up. I'm not allowed to do that. I have to provide storage. That's a part of my business. I do that each and every month. I pay those fees to be a business owner and to operate in the confines of what the code compliance is in this city. So I do that already. So if they can do it, then please tell me where I can go park my truck. Tell me where I can park my trailers, because I pay hundreds of dollars a month for that. So if they can do it, please tell me where I can do it, because I'll be the first one to go park my vehicles there. So I don't think we're asking of them any more than we're asking of any other business owner in this city. So when you look at the Florida statute, you see the definition of mobile. You look up in the dictionary, These are mobile, that's what that business is. Mobile means mobile. It doesn't mean leave it there for a week, a month, 2 months. Some of these have been there for years. So for those reasons, I will support this ordinance as written. I will support the ordinance as the motion maker and the second made. It's 90 days. I think by staff's comments, the mobile food court, the one application that we have in the city, is going to take longer than 90 days. Why change it? Why create a solution to a problem that doesn't exist? So I will support the ordinance as written, and that's my opinion on it. Councilmember Long, was your light on again, or was that before? Councilmember Stenke.
Thank you. I also agree that mobile is mobile. I owned a mobile business for 4 years, and while there were events that were held, and you were allowed to stay at that event during the course of the event. When the event was over, you had to leave. You had to go. And so I'm sure there are many restaurants that have the same feeling that you just expressed, Mayor, and that they had to invest and continue to invest serious money in the business of providing food for people, and they wish that they could have just rolled up, plugged in an extension cord, which some do, fired up their propane tanks, and gone to work and sold. But they didn't. Because they were going to be a fixed business. And so being a fixed business, they knew the price of entry. A mobile business, think how awesome that is. You can go do it wherever you want, but you got to go and do it there. You can't just set up shop like you are a fixed business and never move. So I continue to be in favor of the ordinance.
Councilmember Costin.
I just want to make clear, I'm not suggesting that trucks should be able to sit forever in one spot. I'm saying maybe something more reasonable, like a week or a month or something, because every day is just painful. It's going to be difficult for businesses. Thank you.
Councilmember Cummings.
I ditto what Councilwoman Costin's saying. I'm not saying just park and just freeload. I feel like you guys are taking out what I'm saying. So I know we're done here, but I'm just going to give my last, 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever I can have, just to let you know that I feel that if they have permission, once again, from the owner of the property, and it's movable, it's licensed, it's legalized, then we should leave them alone. Put something where they have to move every 2 weeks, once a week, so they're movable. I agree, it is dangerous, it's not safety if they got flat tires and if they can't move, because if a fire took place, you would have to move them, and if they can't move, I get that. So that's why I'm not for the permanent structure that's not safe. But I am for the movable, but getting the property's permission to park there, to serve for a week, a weekend, whatever it is. And yes, I am for your project. I think this is going to be exciting, brought to Cape Coral as well. So thank you for giving me my platform to be a voice for the small business owners. Thanks.
Thank you. I
Motion to
don't see
approve
any other.
ordinance 89-22.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the motion's already open, okay.
Yeah, we already have a motion and a second on the floor, and I don't see any other lights on for comments. So, Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Costin?
No.
Cummings?
No.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
6 ayes, 2 nays, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to ordinance 2-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 2-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral official zoning district map of all property within the limits of the City of Cape Coral by rezoning property described as lots 1 through 6, Block 1842, Cape Coral subdivision, Unit 45, Part 1, as more particularly described herein, from commercial to residential multifamily low zone. Property is located at 3103, 3107/3109, and 3111/3113 Southwest Santa Barbara Place, providing severability and an effective date.
This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony on ordinance 2-23 must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Struve.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. For the record, Mike Struve, Planning Team Coordinator with the Planning Division. My credentials are on file with the City Clerk's Office. This case before you this evening is a city-initiated rezoning request, meaning the city is the applicant in this case. The city is requesting to rezone 3 small properties totaling a little under an acre in size from the commercial zoning district to the residential multifamily low zoning district, or the RML district. All 3 sites are located along Southwest Santa Barbara Place. This is an aerial map showing the 3 subject sites outlined in red. 2 of the sites have duplexes. A 3rd site to the north is undeveloped. There is a commercial shopping center to the east, but otherwise, within 500 feet of the subject site, this area is dominated by single-family homes and duplexes. Last year, staff brought before council a number of city-initiated future land use and zoning cases for your consideration, and those cases generally fell into one of 2 categories. The first were cases in which the zoning and the land use were inconsistent with one another. So in those cases, either the zoning needed to be changed or the land use needed to be changed. And until that situation was rectified, development permits could not be issued for owners that sought those permits. This case falls into a little different category. This is a situation where initially the land use and the zoning did match. However, the land use and the zoning on the subject properties was really out of alignment with the zoning and the land use for the majority of surrounding sites. Last year, City Council approved changing the land use of these 3 properties from the commercial professional to the multifamily future land use classification. This is really a follow-up action now to change the zoning so that the zoning now will match the future land use classification of the 3 sites. This is a future land use map showing the future land use of the 3 sites is multifamily. The current zoning is commercial, or C, and except for the property to the immediate east that is developed, the majority of the other sites within 500 feet have either single-family residential or multifamily zoning. There is a site directly to the south that is undeveloped that does have professional office zoning. And then lastly, this shows the proposed zoning map should this ordinance be approved by council this evening. Staff has analyzed this request consistent with section 3.4.6 of the Land Development Code, and our analysis is summarized on this slide. Staff believes that the full range of uses allowed in the proposed RML zoning district, which includes single-family homes and duplexes, will be compatible with uses on surrounding properties that the vast majority of which are developed with single-family homes and duplexes. This zoning change will serve a community interest by promoting development that will be more compatible with surrounding sites. The 3 sites are not real strong candidates for commercial development. They're all under separate ownership. They're all small. They all have access restricted currently to a local street, and they lack visibility, which is important for some commercial uses. And in terms of zoning districts that are consistent with the multifamily future land use classification, there are 2 zoning districts, but the RML is the only district that could be applied in this case because the RMM zoning district, which allows greater density and greater height, requires a minimum land acre of 1 acre, which these sites lack. Staff is recommending approval of this zoning change. The hearing examiner has reviewed this case, and she recommended approval of this case following a public hearing on November 1st. There was no input from the public at that public hearing. We have received no correspondence on this case, and I'll stand by in case you have questions.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. Is anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 2-23? Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion to approve ordinance 2-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we will move on to ordinance 4-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 4-23, an ordinance amending City of Cape Coral Ordinance 81-22, which adopted the City of Cape Coral operating budget, revenues and expenditures, and capital budget for fiscal year 2023 by increasing the total revenues and expenditures by a total of $61,658,994, providing severability and an effective date.
Good evening, Mr. Mason.
Good evening, Mayor Mark Mason and council members. Mark Mason, Financial Services Director. Let's see. We're amending the ordinance 81-2022, which adopted the fiscal year 23 operating budget. This is the first of 4 amendments that we expect to have for fiscal year 2023. This budget amendment generally recognizes any council actions approved in November or October and November of 2022, also any encumbrances that we have brought forward into 2023, and any operating or capital outlay adjustments that we have. Florida statute generally provides for this authority to amend the budget throughout the year, so this is not something that, and we do this every single year. So we're amending the budget by $61.7 million, going from $967 million to $1,029 million. It's about a 6.38% increase. The lion's share of the changes are associated with encumbrances, bringing them forward into the through multiple funds, as well as establishing a budget for the first 90 days or thereabouts for Hurricane Ian. So any expenditures that we have with regard to Hurricane Ian are being budgeted for. The offset to the revenues for Hurricane Ian are whatever funds we'll get back from the federal government and the state government. And we'll discuss some of those here shortly as we go through them. In addition, we have council actions that have occurred in October and November, and with these codify these into the budget through the recognition of any grants or that were awarded and approved by the City Council. We had a number of them throughout those 2 months. We also have special revenue fund 6-cent gas tax reserves for curbing machine. You all approved the curbing machine. This actually codifies that through actually budgeting for that curbing machine. In addition, we have some other adjustments for the city auditor. We have a minor adjustment for administrative staff. Police, $34,000 for a vehicle for the victim advocate position. $9,000 we accepted in a donation from Cape Coral Community Foundation. We need to be able to budget for that. Also for Parks and Recreation, we originally were looking at the pocket parks that we talked about, and 5 of them being capital, but they're actually really none of the 5 individually at approximately $25,000 a piece rise to the, or sorry, $20,000 a piece rise to the occasion of capitalizing these improvements. Information technology, you approved an item for us to, in this particular case, it's an increase for project management for the HRMPR or payroll system with Tyler. In addition, government services, we're budgeting for the debt that's associated with the 5-year loan that we took out for for vehicles, for replacement of vehicles last year. It was not included in the budget. It was late in June when it occurred, and we simply didn't get it into the budget in time. Also, as part of the programming that you adopted as part of the budget is transferring funds from government services and this was a reserve in the general fund for bridge capital projects, to move it into its own individual project. So on an annual basis, if we look to fund the bridge program, we would simply just transfer it into this capital project fund to be used as necessary for repairs to our bridges. In addition, on the special revenue funds for fire, we created the fire fund, and so their portion of the debt needs to be recorded as well. Debt service, and then we actually put it all into the debt service fund for the transfers. In addition, Parks and Recreation, these are some of the other adjustments. We received funding for the Serenia Vista restroom, so we're actually recording that and adjusting the budget for that awarded grant. Parks and Recreation, we're reclassifying again the pocket parks, so we're removing it from the capital project fund, putting it back into the general fund. Public Works, again, the creation of the bridge capital project fund, and of course for government services, capital projects for the Tyler Humans capital management program. So this is a transfer that comes in from the general fund into the capital project fund to pay for that. Enterprise funds, $90,000. These are the vehicles for the UEP inspectors. We would expect to recover that cost over a period of time with regard to the UEP and the administrative costs associated with the UEP to reimburse back the water and sewer fund for those vehicles. And we're wrapping up here for the fund balance for the encumbrance carried forwards. The majority of this is things that we ordered in or contracted for in fiscal year 23 that had not yet been completed. Some of the items were due to Hurricane Ian that we would have had them delivered before the end of the fiscal year, except for Ian. So we ended up having to roll them over, and they've been paid clearly in the first couple of months of the fiscal year. I think the lion's share of this $12 million is the Hurricane Ian encumbrances that occurred in the last 4 days of the fiscal year, so we bring them forward as well. And again, the offset for that would be any funding that comes in from the federal government, because we are at 100% for those 4 days. On the general fund capital outlay side, we had a number of some equipment, vehicles. It's taking right now upwards of almost 2 years to construct some of the equipment that we've ordered at least a year ago, if not longer, before we'll end up seeing those. So I would expect that we're going to see these encumbrances carrying forward numerous times during the course of the year, over a couple of years. In the special revenue funds, we have a number of encumbrances that were brought forward. And I mean, you can see the numbers that we're talking about. The Community Redevelopment Agency had a number of outstanding projects, as well as building code. Fire operations had vehicles that were outstanding for purchase. And on the enterprise side, encumbrances associated with the enterprise funds and stormwater, same thing. And the internal service funds, we had a number of encumbrances that were outstanding as well. For Hurricane Ian, as I stated earlier, $25 million to start with regard to the funding necessary to be able to expend the funds. They need to be budgeted for. We also have other funds for the personnel services which we call the Category B forced labor account that were associated with I think it was 14 days associated with the emergency. In addition, we have one position that's being added. It's a city attorney position. This position is being added at this time. That basically gives the city attorney time for recruitment. In other words, without the position, she can't begin a recruitment. But this position is designed to replace the senior legal paralegal position in fiscal year 2024. So when October 1, 2024 comes around, we'll be eliminating the assistant city, the senior paralegal position in favor of this position, which will already have been established, and we have gone through the recruitment process. There is no budget that's associated with this because there's already currently salary savings within the city attorney's budget. We would expect at this time, we're 4 months into the fiscal year, it will likely take upwards of 6 more months in order to fill that position. So it's really a timing issue about having the opportunity to put it out for recruitment before the position is actually filled. And that is it for me. Any questions? If you have any.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. If there's anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 4-23, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 4-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to ordinance 7-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 7-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, Economic Development and Business Incentive Programs, by establishing Article 3, Economic Development Ad Valorem Tax Exemption, Sections 29-11 through 29-21, providing for purpose, intent, and authority, providing definitions, establishing an Economic Development Ad Valorem Tax Exemption, providing for consideration of applications and criteria for an exemption, providing for continuing performance and annual filings, providing for revocation and sunset date, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item simply codifies the ballot item that was approved by our voters in November of last year, consistent with the state constitution and state law to allow us to provide a ad valorem property tax exemption for certain types of new and expanding businesses. Thank you.
Okay, I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 7-23, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 7-23?
Motion to approve.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 8-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 8-23, an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a permissive use license agreement with United Way of Lee County, Inc. for the lease of property owned by the City of Cape Coral, being a portion of Block 56, Cape Coral, Unit 6, Part 3, Cape Coral Subdivision, as described herein, providing for severability and an effective date.
Good evening, Ms. Andrews.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Dawn Andrews with the Property Management Division. Ordinance 8-23 is requesting approval to enter into a license agreement with the United Way to utilize a small portion of the city's parking area that is located on the south side of Cape Coral Parkway and west of Leonard Street. This is the former Veterans Museum parking lot where the Rib City is located on. The United Way is partnering with the Cape Coral Caring Center to distribute furniture to the Cape Coral residents who have been impacted by Hurricane Ian and are working to get back into their homes. The United Way has requested to place a temporary portable storage unit on a small portion of the parking lot while they distribute furniture to, as I said, citizens in the Cape. The term of the agreement is until June 30th and may be extended for an additional 6-month period if necessary, and I can stand by for questions.
Okay, I will now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 8-23, please come forward.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, Mayor, council members. I'm Angela Fischler, Senior Manager of the Community Impact for United Way. I'm here, Ms. Andrews did an excellent job of setting it up, but I'm here to request approval for the United Way to use a portion of the subject vacant parking lot on Leonard Street to allow us to serve citizens of Cape Coral with the newly formed United Way Recovery Distribution Program, excuse me. So to provide a little background, this program was developed in response to the widespread need for replacement furnishings resulting from the devastation of Hurricane Ian. Since October, approximately $6 million worth of new furniture and other needed items has been flowing in from generous donors around the country. As a creative solution to efficiently distribute these items where they're needed most, United Way's Gifts in Kind team has partnered with the storage container company Pods and 10 local social service agencies to distribute goods to people impacted by the storm. We identified 10 locations in the more heavily impacted communities across Lee County, including Cape Coral, and we've already placed storage containers on 9 of those sites. Each location is locked and managed by a United Way partner agency. Members of the public can go to the United Way website to get contact information for their nearest pod location and then call for an appointment. The agencies that are managing the pods receive those calls and vet the callers and then schedule to meet them at the pod so they can retrieve items. Appointments are required and walk-ups are not permitted. Recipients are responsible to move or transport the items themselves. When the agency pod managers are vetting callers to ensure they have needs related to Hurricane Ian, they also have an opportunity to understand if the caller has other social service needs, such as food, transportation, temporary housing, or mental health support, and then they can move forward to serve and help in those ways. The pods are initially stocked with new beds and complete bedding sets, and they're going to be replenished according to demand and availability of items. We're anticipating that future distributions are going to include additional furniture, building supplies, and utilities. I'm sorry, not utilities, appliances. I would really like to thank City Manager Hernandez, Fire Chief Lamb, Alvin Anderson, Jason Orlano, Ms. Andrews, and the City Attorney's Office staff for helping us to not only identify the site on Leonard Street, but also helping to move this item forward so quickly. So this location is very well positioned to allow us to share needed items with the residents of Cape Coral who've been impacted by Ian. And we're very grateful that Cape Coral Caring Center has stepped up to manage that pod for us. As Ms. Andrews said, we anticipate that the pods will remain in use in their current locations for 6 months, but that may be extended depending on demand. We officially launched the first 9 of these sites last Thursday, and it was, a very well received celebration, received a lot of great media coverage, and we would love to be able to launch a site to support the citizens of Cape Coral. Thank you for your time. I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on ordinance 8-23, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 8-23?
Motion to approve.
And I heard about 3 motions. Do we have a second?
Give it to Dan and Patty. It's all right.
Okay. All right, and Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, Don, I didn't see any, and I'll ask the United Way representative to also comment on this. And I know what the Caring Center is going to do, and they're going to do it by appointment only, maybe for a couple days a week, but they won't have any responsibility of getting the stuff out of the pods. That'll go to the resident. Don, my question to you is there enough room on that site for 2 pods? It doesn't say it's limited to 1 pod.
Excuse me. The site that we had discussed was big enough for enough room to park the pod and to remove it at a later date. We can extend it. It's in the, it's in the parking lot. But this particular, it talks about a size, I think,
It's 16 by 8 by 8 is the size
is
of
the size of the pod.
But it didn't list a specific number of pods that could go there? I don't
No,
remember
it
seeing
only,
that in
it
the
only
ordinance.
discusses the 1 pod, or it only discusses the 1 area, which,
My question to you is, I've heard that managing and going through these pods can get difficult for people for something they may see way in the back and can't get to it. Are they more easily managed if there's 2 pods there, so you can maybe not necessarily pack as much in 1, but maybe put more in 2 so that it's easier for people to access what they might see and be able to get?
I believe that is a possibility. We have looked at the possibility of having more than 1 pod in certain locations, like Pine Island, that's difficult to get to restock effectively. We would probably want to see how the demand is, and currently they're stocked with like 12 to 14 mattresses, and so our folks who stock them are careful to make it so that, you know, people can get to the items, but that's a good consideration.
Yeah, and I know, maybe as you monitor it, if it looks like the need is great enough where 2 pods could be placed even at our location or other locations, I hope that you would look into it, because I know it's set for a defined amount of time, so. But thank you for doing this, and thank you for involving the Caring Center as well.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Welsh.
All my questions were asked and answered by Councilmember Hayden, so.
Okay. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Operationally, is this just a pickup facility where they're arranging for what they're picking up somewhere else?
Correct. So people in the public will look on the United Way website, will find the location that's nearest to them, and there's a contact number for them to call for that location. They'll call, schedule an appointment, and we're calling them the pod manager, the site manager, will meet that individual there. First, they'll vet them over the telephone, make sure that they, have need from the hurricane and understand what it is that they want, and that's currently present in the pod. We'll meet them there, unlock the pod, and allow the person to remove the items, and they're going to prep them and say, please bring a vehicle appropriate to carry what it is that you're going to take, and maybe bring buddies to help you carry stuff if you're taking a lot. So.
Okay, great, thank you. My concern was just security of personnel that might be there, and certainly the ability to conceal oneself in the pod. So if an appointment's required, and I think it's fabulous. Thank you.
Mayor,
Okay.
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Andrews?
So I put on the overhead the location, and the area that we've described is 36 by 24, which would fit 2 pods if they're 8 by 16, but they'd have to be side by side.
That's right. That would work.
That if there is enough room. If there wasn't enough room, we would have to amend the ordinance, but it looks like it would fit.
And I just got word that we can bring 2 to Cape Coral, so had to get.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, did I close public hearing?
Yes, you did.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 8-23? And I think we did that as well. We had three motions in 1 second, and so it looks like we've got through the process. I don't see any other discussion from council, so Madam City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke? Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance
Thank
10-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 10-23, an ordinance amending the Cape Coral Code of Ordinances by repealing Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Boards and Commissions, Division 6, Cape Coral Construction Regulation Board, Sections 2-120.3 through 2-120.11 in its entirety, regarding abolishing the Cape Coral Construction Regulation Board and by amending Chapter 6, Contractors and Construction Regulation Board, regarding contractors performing work in the city, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Katara.
Thank you, Mayor. Vince Cotero, Development Services Department. As Kimberly stated, a good portion of this ordinance amendment is to repeal existing chapters or portions of chapters in our Code of Ordinances to mirror the state statute, which went into effect July 1st of 2021, which was aimed to simplify contractor licensing rules and reduce government regulations of certain non-structural contractors. As many of you know, the state classifies its contractors into two divisions. One are in a broad category of general building and residential contractors, and Division 2 are field contractors, sometimes referred to as subcontractors, but more commonly known as specialty contractors. Examples include air conditioning, plumbing, roofing. The state has passed new statutory language which will enable local governments to still certify or license local contractors and specialty contractors, provided certain criteria are met. In working with our colleagues across the river in Lee County, we have come to find that they are slowly eliminating these rules to avoid duplication with state law and eliminating their construction regulation board. So our recommendation to you is that you do the same, and that would leave only the licensing issue to the state of Florida. People would not have to obtain a local license to perform the work. The state would regulate the general contractors and certain specialty contractors. And the state is eliminating the requirement for certain specialty contractors as well. That does not mean they would not get a business tax receipt or receive zoning approval. It means they would not have to have another layer of licensure that they would get at the state. So that's the second part of the ordinance. It would eliminate your construction regulation board, and it would eliminate the ability for those contractors to have to receive, in essence, a double license. I don't have a presentation on PowerPoint. I just left it to the discussions. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 10-23, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion to approve ordinance 10-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hasden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we move on to ordinance 11-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 11-23, an ordinance approving and granting to Lee County Electric Cooperative, Inc. a perpetual easement for a right-of-way to be used for the construction, operation, and maintenance of one or more overhead and underground electric distribution lines across property owned by the city that is in the area of the Sands Park, located at 2718 Southwest 43rd Terrace, as more particularly described herein. Authorizing and directing the mayor to execute the easement. A copy of the easement is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you. Ms. Andrews.
Good evening again, Mayor, City Council members. Dawn Andrews with the Property Management Division. Ordinance 11-23 is to grant a perpetual easement to Lee County Electric Cooperative upon a portion of the Sands Park complex. Sands Park is one of the new neighborhood go-bomb parks located off of Sands Boulevard at 2718 Southwest 43rd Terrace. The park is currently under construction. The easement will provide LCEC the ability to route a primary power to the restroom transformer at the park. It is an underground line. There's conduit that the city has constructed to the transformer. I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 11-23, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 11-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to item 10B, introductions. The first introduction is ordinance 3-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 3-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from light industrial to public facilities land use for property described as lots 24 through 29, Block 1548, Cape Coral, Unit 17, and Lot 15, Southwind Commercial Center, property located at 2025 Northeast 6th Street and 671 Stonecrest Lane, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 15th, 2023.
Thank you. Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 5-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 5-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from Commercial Activity Center to Burnt Store Road District land use for property located in Section 7, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Section 29, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Section 32, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, and Section 20, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein. Amending the future land use map from Commercial Professional to Burnt Store Road District land use for property described as lots 1 through 24, Block 4291, Cape Coral, Unit 61, for property described as Tract A, Block 6114, Cape Coral, Unit 97, and for property located in Section 7, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein. Amending the future land use map from multifamily to Burnt Store Road District land use for property described as Blocks 6171, 6172, 6173, 6174, and 6175, Cape Coral, Unit 98. Amending the future land use map from mixed use to Burnt Store Road District land use for property described as lots 31, Block 5522, Cape Coral, Unit 91, Tract A, South 40 Subdivision, lots 16 through 20, M-2, 6, 10, 14, and tracts A and B, Westchester Estates, lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, Block 5523, Cape Coral, Unit 91, and for property located in Section 18, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Section 19, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, and Section 30, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein. Amending the future land use map from open space to Burnt Store Road District land use for property located in Section 20, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein. Amending the future land use map from public facilities to Burnt Store Road District land use for property described as lots 27 through 30, Block 5522, Cape Coral, Unit 91. Amending the future land use map from single family to Burnt Store Road District land use for property described as Blocks 6169 and 6170, Cape Coral, Unit 98, and tracts C and D and lots 21 through 54, Westchester Estates. Amending the future land use map from single family / multifamily to Burnt Store Road District land use for property described as lots 28 through 33, Block 4303, Cape Coral, Unit 61, lots 17 through 46, Block 6300, Cape Coral, Unit 83-1, lots 1 through 51, Block 6301, Cape Coral, Unit 83-1, lots 1 through 71, Block 6303, Cape Coral, Unit 83-1. Tracks 1 through 5, Block 5520, Cape Coral, Unit 91. Lots 1 through 26, Block 5521, Cape Coral, Unit 91. Lots 1 through 26, Block 5522, Cape Coral, Unit 91. And for property located in Section 7, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Section 19, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, and Section 30, Township 43 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 15th, 2023.
Is there any discussion by staff or council?
Can we just applaud her being able to do that without skipping a beat?
Great job, like always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you do it again?
All right, seeing no discussion by staff or council, we will move on to ordinance 9-23. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 9-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from commercial professional to multifamily residential land use for property described as lots 21 through 29, Block 1073, Cape Coral, Unit 23. Property located at 706, 712, and 718 Southeast 7th Street, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 15th, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, reports. Councilmember Cosden, report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing, I attended the MPO meeting on January 20th. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cummings.
Yes, I'll diddle what Councilwoman Cousin said, MPO meeting. Also went to the RO plant today with Jeff. That was awesome to get that tour. If you have not done it yet, I'd highly recommend it. It was very interesting to see how it was all put together to keep our water clean here in the city. Also, Mayor, I had a question to ask you. It's about the UEP project and some federal grant money, and I believe we're all in agreement that we could definitely use some funds to go towards this project. And I believe we would be in agreements on trying to get with our lobbyists in DC. I spoke with Congressman Byron Donalds this past week and his team, and he stated that if the monies are there, he would be more than happy to sign off on a congressional letter of approval to help us with this UEP, to put some money towards this. So I would like to know if I can get some help to put this together.
I will tell you that they reached out to me as well about the inquiry that you had made. And my understanding was speaking with Congressman Donalds and his staff was they felt that the best thing that we can do as a city, first and foremost, is to reach out to our federal lobbyist to find out what is actually available out there. Once that is identified, and if that's something that we collectively as a city are going to pursue, then Congressman Donalds stated that he would get involved at that point.
Yeah.
But he felt that there was several other steps first that needed to take place before his office would get involved. So I think that's something that we can work with the city manager and staff and our federal lobbyist to see what we may or may not qualify for.
Yes.
What types of programs that we could even apply for, because of course, we would welcome any type of federal dollars that would offset the expense of our utility expansion project, not only for this project, but our future projects as well. So I think that, we have some steps to take first. Is my understanding that the congressman would prefer us to do.
Yeah, that's what he was stating to me. We would get with the lobbyists to see what kind of monies are out there.
And
how we
then
can move forward.
once we apply for any types of federal dollars or grants, then he wouldn't have a problem with drafting a
Yes.
letter of support for those federal dollars.
Yes.
But I think that we have some other steps that we need to meet first before they are comfortable in engaging in the process, was my understanding. So that's something that, I think that Mr. City Manager could have a discussion with our federal lobbyist, maybe bring back that information to see what is available out there, what we qualify for. As we all know, with federal dollars, there comes a lot of restrictions and stipulations. So we have to make sure, first of all, if we meet the minimum qualifications to even apply. A lot of times that has to do with the demographics, the mean income of our area. There's a lot of other restrictions that I think needs to be identified first. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up until about 2 years ago, the only type of federal funding that was made available for utility infrastructure projects was basically through what's known as WIFIA. And WIFIA basically provided low-interest loans to utilities rather than outright grants. It wasn't until I think ARPA came along as a result of COVID that the feds actually made grant monies available for infrastructure projects. One thing that we have learned, as you mentioned a second ago, is that when you receive federal money, you must abide by all of the regulations that are associated with that. And sometimes those dollars can end up increasing the project cost and also can end up delaying the project overall. For UEP 1 North, the project has already been bid out. So depending on what type of federal funding becomes available, we'll have to look at the program requirements for that to determine if that can be used on UEP 1. It might be that UEP 1 East might be a better candidate if we know ahead of time that we're getting federal monies, and then we can adjust our procurement specifications accordingly to include the federal purchasing requirements. And what I'm referring to is usually they require prevailing wage, otherwise known as Davis-Bacon. They also require, there's something called the Buy America provision that states that the majority of the material that is used on the project has to be sourced from U.S. manufacturers. So that can increase not only the cost, but the lead time associated with ordering supplies from U.S. manufacturers, because all the factories are busy right now. So we work with our lobbyists, I would say, on a daily basis. Amanda Wood up in D.C. and Nick and Ellen here in the state to identify any type of funding that becomes available either through the federal government or through the state. Now, there is a federal infrastructure bill that was passed, I think, several months ago. I have yet to see all the details associated with that in terms of what monies they're going to be, the feds are going to make available for utility infrastructure projects. So that could be a source. But again, I think it's a little too late for UEP 1 Northwest because everything's been bid out, it's ready to go.
Yeah, I think maybe a good way to approach this is maybe we can reach out, because I am familiar with that infrastructure bill as well, but I haven't seen the specifics or read the specifics to find out what the criteria is to be able to apply for any federal dollars. Maybe, Mr. City Manager, we could reach out to our federal lobbyist and ask that question and see if they can have a response and see if there are any funding mechanisms that may be available, and they could forward that to council, once we hear back from them. Okay.
Thank
And then that'll hopefully answer some of the questions that you or any of us may have. Okay. Anything else, Councilmember Cummings?
No, just Thank you.
All right.
Have a great night.
Councilmember Hayden.
No report.
Councilmember Long.
No report.
Councilmember Shepherd.
No report.
Councilmember Steinke.
How could I have no report? I just want to thank you again for, back in December, for switching the calendar around for our retreat so that I could attend the Board of Directors meeting for Florida Realtors last week. And as it relates to the UEP project, I had the opportunity to spend some time with our public policy department, if you will, and they confirmed that there are dollars available for a program called Septic to Sewer that came about as a part of our water quality issues in the state of Florida. And the Government Affairs Director for the local Realtor Association has volunteered to assist in the coordination of connecting our city officials with those that are in charge of getting grants approved out of that funding that is available. And that contact actually just began today. And so we should see some at least steps being taken to see if there aren't some dollars that will help in either, and it may be too late for them to actually reduce the annual obligation, if you will, but they might be available for potential future rebates. So stay tuned. There could be cavalry on the way to provide some assistance through that program. And other than that, that is my report.
Is that through Department of Economic Opportunity?
I believe it is. Okay. And it's, as I remembered, it's somewhere to the tune of about $400 million statewide.
Okay.
Yeah, DeSantis been hitting on it. They give a lot of money to Lee County.
Okay. That's something that our state lobbyists could address for sure. Okay, Councilmember Welch.
Thank you, Mayor. No real report. I look forward to our retreat, which is not really going to be much of a retreat, but the 8 of us together for the next 2 days, figuring out how we're going to move the city forward. So I look forward to the time that we'll spend together over the next 2 days and hope we can do good for the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a few things I wanted to bring up first, and then I'll go into my report. One thing that I wanted to ask council, that I think there's a couple topics that we need to discuss next week, and what I would like to try to do, if council so desires, to have a special meeting next week, maybe at 2 p.m. The topics of discussion will be the city manager's extension in his contract. There are some time requirements and stipulations within his contract that will need to be addressed prior to February 16th, I believe it is. The other two topics, I know that HR department is working on identifying a search firm for the future city attorney. So I think we need to have a discussion there. And also the plan moving forward. I know we briefly discussed the plan for the city attorney's position, but I think as far as what we're going to do and how we're going to approach that, so I think we have some additional conversation that needs to take place there. So I was thinking a special meeting on February 1st in room 220A at 2 p.m. so council collectively can have those discussions. So I just want to make sure, number one, everybody's available and don't have a problem with that particular time period. Okay. Madam City Clerk, if you could make that happen, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
And with that being said, as far as report, on January 12th, had the occasion with the city manager and some other staff members meet with Senator Jonathan Martin to discuss our legislative priorities and strategy for this legislative session. Also, that particular day, we met with Representative Spencer Roach topic of discussion was the same. Also, that particular day in the evening, I attended one of our businesses, John Michael's Jewelries, for a ribbon cutting event. The next day, on January 13th, I attended the Southwest Florida League of City meeting, and I think several council members, Councilmember Steinke, Shepherd, myself, Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember Long, were you there? I can't remember now. No? Okay, so a majority, there was some representation from city council at that particular meeting. Also, there was another ribbon cutting event at a business here in our city at Monarca's Mexican restaurant on January 18th. I also participated in the walking tour in the southern part of the city with Senator Rick Scott. He was interested in getting a firsthand view of the damage as a result of Hurricane Ian. Had a great discussion. He also stated a desire, if we need anything as a city in our recovery efforts, to please reach out to him. So if there ever is a point in time where we need to do that, we can surely do that as well. Also attended the Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting on the 20th. I was a guest speaker on the 21st at the 50th year celebration for Friends of Cape Coral Library, which was very well attended, and they've been in existence for the last 50 years, almost as long as the city of Cape Coral, and also was a guest speaker at the 23rd annual Kiwanis Kids Fest last Saturday. And I believe that's all the report that I have. Madam City Attorney, report?
I have no report.
Mr. City Manager?
No report.
Okay, then the time and place of future meetings. Cape Coral City Council Retreat, a 2-day event, which will be held on Thursday, January 26, 2023, Friday, January 27, 2023, beginning both days at 9 a.m. at the Nicholas Annex at 815 Nicholas Parkway, Conference Room A20, Green Room, I still don't understand that, Cape Coral. And also we have a regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council is scheduled for Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, beginning at 4:30 p.m. in council chambers. And we also have the new meeting that we had just discussed, a special meeting of the Cape Coral City Council, which will be held on Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, in Conference Room 220A at 2 p.m. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion adjourned.